love you, oh loves. Do you have those? Do you wanna share them with me? I love you, oh loves. Oh, do you have those? I'd like to share mine with you. Can we share like lovers do? Underneath the painted blue moon, oh loves, do you have those? And do you want to share with me? Share with me too. I love you, oh loves, do you have those? And do you wanna share them with me? 'Cause I've got dreams to share with you. Come and let's share some fantasies. I love you, oh loves, do you have those? And do you wanna share them with me? I love you, oh loves, do you have those? I wanna share mine with you. Please share me with you too. I wanna be with you. I love you, oh loves. Night after our last night, I seen you best time yet. You stood in the sun. I knew you were my woman. When I dreamed that night, I held you oh so tight. Your arms held me like the blankets I ever knew. When I was up, baby, you wrapped in my mom's arms, and every night all I did was dream of you. And now you know, 'cause you seen me too. I hope you wanna go and share your whole life and dreams with me too. Oh loves, do you have thoughts? And do you wanna share with me too? Do you, and oh loves, do you have thoughts? I know I do. Come and share. Can you come and be with me too? I wanna share them with you. Oh loves, ooh, share with me too.
Ambient noise, yeah.
So now you're grabbing some band lab clips.
Now for me that would also be something where I would use like volume automation and like bring that from the bottom, like bring it in and then bring it back out. Kind of.
And these are the kinds of sounds you can scratch. With this AI, like scratching it actually can be cool.
Oh, that was perfect for the interlude too.
Ends it right in the right
I
spot.
didn't even notice. 40. I didn't even realize the texture faded out at the interlude until it happened. I'm like, wait a minute.
Sometimes you just, it was just meant to be that way.
Oh, we
Mhm.
love you whole lots.
That's right. Each and every time.
And I do have thoughts, especially on tonight's topic.
It's a good one. It's one that's coming. Yeah, be ready for it because it's going to run you over if you're not ready for it.
Well, and it's one that, because this is our 4-year anniversary show. Like, it's
Yes.
been
Four,
4 years, Glenn.
4 years.
And
Four
it,
more
it's
years.
it's been almost that long, since we checked in on the AI world. Like, we looked
Mhm.
at it early on, and in that episode, we looked at a lot of you know AI music software. It was
Mhm.
focused on that, but so much has changed between then and now, and I felt it fitting to catch back up, see
Mhm.
where the AI landscape has changed since then,
Mhm. Yep.
and I couldn't really just focus on the music side because AI is taking over everything.
Exactly. It's not just me reading poetry anymore. You do have
It's
my voice there,
it's
though.
AI is reading poetry, singing songs, creating Hollywood level visuals that,
Mhm.
I mean, even 2 years ago was still like in its infancy. But I think 2024 is definitely the year where a lot of this starts to settle in. GPT-4 and all the noise with GPT-5,
Mhm.
you're starting to see it come to fruition.
I'm really excited to see where the AI takes us in terms of science, like how it's able to assist scientists with going through huge amounts of data and pulling out the necessary, teasing out the important bits. And AI is going to be very useful for that kind of a thing, I think, as
Yeah,
well.
and that's actually where it interested me the most, and I have the least
Mhm.
fears. Like, this is good, this will
Mhm.
help, and it's not necessarily going to put people out of jobs as it is going to change the jobs that people do.
Mhm.
Whereas,
Right.
whereas,
It's a tool that's helping them.
whereas, like some of the AI that we're going to look at, and some of the topics, more come from the fear of job security side, where you have those who
Mhm.
are feeling like, I'm out of a job now. And
Yeah,
I hope that's not what tonight's episode pushes you towards. I want to encourage enthusiasm for AI and not fear of it. I don't
Mhm.
feel like
Yeah, because
it's gonna put me out of a job. I feel like it's it's gonna complement the jobs I already do.
exactly, and that's the thing is people whose job it is directly coming for. Like if it's somebody who can be easily replaced by AI, that sort of a thing would be the question would be what what other things could you do around your job? Like what skills you have from your job that you can now apply if AI is doing that. Well, what can we do to assist that AI in doing that better? To make you know your own job above that AI, to control that AI, use that AI as an agent of yours to do things while you're accomplishing a larger
Yeah,
goal.
yeah. If you're like a voiceover guy, um,
Mhm.
consider learning how to program the AI with your voice, and kind of getting that niche in there, because right now that's what a lot of the voice synthesizer AIs, they're in the middle of being trained. So, like, there's a lot of
Mhm.
models out there, and there's a lot of people who are looking for great voices to train the AI on. And
Mhm.
if you feel like, oh my God, I'm going to lose voiceover work, shit, become the voice of AI.
Yeah, that's the thing is a lot of it comes down to what you're feeding the AI. And in the case of even just the voiceover that you had to do, it was reading Edgar Allan Poe poetry in my voice. It's basically just you're feeding it. The longer a sample you give it, the better off it is, right?
Yeah,
So if you give it 10 seconds or 30 seconds, you'll get a better result from a 30-second clip. But at the same time, if you were trying to specifically generate an AI voice, like, I could generate an AI voice character where if I spoke in a character voice, I could make that, make a template where I go through this particular paragraph, like read these lines as that character and feed that to the AI. And now the AI should be able to generate that character essentially for me at that
Yeah, and
point.
it's easier to get an AI to make a unique character voice out of AI than to try to simulate a voice that you want it to sound like. What
Hmm.
I've noticed with the few that I've been looking at, the way you're training them now, it's really become developed. It reminds me a lot of you remember Drag and Dictate and like the voice recognition software in the early 2000s,
Hmm.
and
Sure.
you'd go through like some training steps. It would have you read very specific things so that it could hear how you speak saying these words, how you speak saying these words, and the training was specifically designed to get all the nuances that the software needed.
Hmm. Exactly.
And in that case, it was doing it
It's
so that it could understand you. Now
mhm,
it's doing it so it can duplicate you.
exactly. And whether it's duplicating you or duplicating or you're training it, like I said, you can try to train it to be 100 different people. It doesn't have to just be my voice all the time. I can make my voice sound like something else, imitate a character, do an impression, and see if I can get the AI to do a, workable version of that impression, and it's off on its own because I gave it the source material, but then it's generating the whole thing from
A-
there.
a-
And then it comes to the believability is the
That's
question.
another thing I've noticed with some of these voice synthesizer AIs. They've gone from just running off of text, because like in the beginning it
Mhm,
was all you put in text, you picked a voice and it would read from text. But now with the singing AIs and some of the other ones, you actually feed it audio that has
mhm,
dynamics, and a human actually driving the audio, and then it converts it,
mhm.
and that's much more effective. Like this is where you're
Yeah.
seeing examples of like AI sang this song.
Yep. And that's, again, like you said, it's you're feeding it enough information or a solid enough voice, like by doing a singing voice, and the way your voice goes up or down, how long you hold a note, the attack, how loud things are. It can take all of those dynamics in from your performance and then just apply them to this other voice over here. For the computer, that's very easy because you're actually giving it something but if you were to try to program that from scratch and say make this sound, and it's to try to get into all the nuance of how all that gets different, it would be very hard to program that way. But by feeding it that input, you're telling it mimic it like this, but make it
Yeah.
better, and it can do that for very, very
Yeah, and
easily.
another thing I noticed as I was looking through some of these different softwares that are available now, they're starting to
Mhm,
get the prompts are getting easier to kind of direct what you're able to actually like put in brackets and say like this is the chorus, this is the bridge. In the case of one of them
mhm.
we're going to be looking at, it actually recognizes that and
Sure.
utilizes it as it's forming the voice that you're trying to make. It knows it's singing a chorus or a bridge or a verse, and
Hmm.
I think that was an important step.
Very much. It sounds like it's reading the structure, and whether, like, chorus, for example, chorus is going to have repetition. It's going to be the same as it was earlier. The verse is going to be a longer section than the chorus, for example. It can use identifiers like that to try to guess, what part of the song you're in at
Yeah,
that point. But something like, is it a pre-chorus or a bridge? Like something like that might be, there might be confusion on, but we'll see.
yeah, well, in that case, if it's also generating the music, because there's different use
Mhm,
cases. There's some where like people use it just to generate the voice, and other use cases where they like make me the whole song, make me a song that
mhm.
sounds
Yep.
like this. Here's some words, put them in there, and then those little identifiers, the bridge, chorus, really help in building the song as well.
This is also where the concept of AI agents is going to be becoming big, if it's not already, where, one AI would be better at writing song lyrics, for example. And there's another AI that would be better at interpreting song lyrics and making them into a voice. And there's another AI that would be a better, as the mixing engineer, for example. You could have all these different little AI agents, each one doing their own little job, but covering all the bases of what you would have being done in a real music studio, for example. And so, like, one AI is doing this job, one AI is doing that job, but they're all very good at that one specific task. But if you were to ask any one of them to do the whole job wouldn't be nearly as good as it would be by having each focus on its one little area that it's good at.
Yeah, and you kind of
So specialized AI agents.
predicted that and suggested that in our first AI night, where it's going to take multiple AIs to kind of make the big
Mhm.
picture make sense. And
Exactly.
actually, the first video, let's take a look and see what we've got lined up. The reason
Yeah, yeah.
why I chose this, you might remember Tiff and Tech from last week, and
Hmm.
I, these channels sometimes they they give me like so much to work with that it's harder to like pick one video from them. She had a couple of different AI ones that I really would have loved to have brought in. She had one on the importance of prompt engineering that like
Hmm. Oh
I
yeah.
I had to force myself to say this we can do on another night, but it was so relevant. But I
Hmm.
chose this one because for our introduction here, um, she approaches it AGI. AGI, I was looking at that, I'm like, AGI, I know what AI is, but AGI, this is a new term to me,
Artificial general
general
intelligence.
intelligence. And the
Hmm.
first thing I thought is that makes total sense to call it that, because
Hmm.
technically, if you think about AI, especially in the sense of like specialized AI, if this AI is good at like building this part of the car, and there's another AI that's doing this part of the car, um, that AI is very specialized and it only knows what it knows. But the
Right.
purpose of AGI is to build that kind of general intelligence that a human who can learn and say, hey, I can
Hmm.
build this part of the car and I can build that part of the car, just show me.
Yeah. And several years ago, I saw a video of them training a robot where the idea was this was not an AI project, but it was a robotics project. And the idea was rather than trying to write code to tell a robot how to move its arm to do this and to do that with all the different, you know, angles, you got 6 degrees of freedom and you're trying to, duplicate a human wrist and elbow and shoulder and get all that to work, properly in a mechanical system, line by line of code is very tedious and very difficult. Whereas they were trying to do it the other way, the way you would train an infant or a toddler by basically having it move in its body and figure it out. So it basically they were trying to have, and they were doing like little demonstrations, like there's a block on the table that it can interact with, and the robot has eyes, so it can see things and it can see its hand in the space and it can move objects in the space. And like the person who was interacting with the robot, moved the little block around and then left it there, and then the robot reached out and moved the block around and then left it there. And so they were like doing turn taking back and forth, and it was almost like somebody was interacting with a toddler, while they're training this robot. But the idea was that the robot is learning how to do the moves itself rather than trying to do it coding line by
Yeah.
line.
One of the
So I'm sure they've made some progress in that too over
one
the
of the
years.
earliest versions of that I saw in the like industrial workplace was making a robotic equipment that is safe, that recognizes if
Right.
there's a human in the way, and like
Hmm.
it won't harm humans. It kind of goes back to like the
Hmm.
Asimov laws
The
of
laws, yeah.
robotics. Like you can build this car, but if somebody's standing in the way, you can't.
Yeah. Well, that was also an early problem that they ran into, was robots hurting themselves, where not on purpose, but like the shortest way to get from here to there is to go straight through here. And it didn't know that its body was in the way. So it's like, trying to move right through its body to get to a spot over there because it's the most efficient way to get there. You have to program it to know that, oh, you can't go through this area because that's where your body is,
Yeah.
But you have to get to that level of programming when you're doing these things. And they learn that over time. Some of it with the robotics working with humans safely is about, if it's moving to the side, if it's just trying to get there as quickly as it can, it's going to move quickly. And if something's in the way, it's going to hit it very hard and very, and cause injury. The idea would be that you're trying to move, but if there's any kind of pushback, it immediately stops the push or softens it, where it's, when it actually would make contact, it would feel like you're just being hit by, a piece of paper or cardboard or whatever, as far as the amount of force, because it would detect in that amount of time that it's something is in the way, and it would slow down in time to not cause
Well,
injury.
and
But that's where the sensors come in. Sensors need to be
this
good.
is where giving that robot the awareness that a human has to say, oh, there's a human in front of me. Maybe I shouldn't punch this nail in.
Mm-hmm.
Um, giving it those kind of sensors and awareness is where it started to feel like AI. It's no longer just code that says, do this and do it over and over again. It's code that says, like, use your sensors to recognize the world that you're in and respond accordingly.
And now with the AI and with the AI agents that we're having access to at this point, you're taking that another step further, saying now you're going to figure out how to do it most efficiently with these, safeguards in place, like, not moving too fast and making sure that there's nothing in the way and all that. And you're able to train it with billions of iterations using AI and having it go through training models like that. And then say, okay, what did you learn after those billions of iterations? And now you can apply that to your model right here. And then it learned from all of that as if it did it a billion times already.
And that actually leads into our second video, because as I was looking through these, like, I really wanted to see the current state of affairs, like where we're at. And this one from Fireship kind of was a premonition last year. Like he was talking about it, like saying, regulation is coming, and no big shock. I felt the same way at that time, that like, it not only is it coming, it's coming fast and furious, and it's coming from different directions. And that has been the debate for the last couple of years as to, is it dangerous? And it's not a question of if it should be regulated, it's more a question of how it should be regulated.
It's also a question of, will regulating really make a difference? Because if it's as dangerous as a lot of people think it is, you can regulate anything you want. It's not going to change anything.
Yeah.
It could still just overpower everything anyway. And, Skynet is here, depending on who
Yeah.
you're listening to,
Some of
right?
the things people are actually fearful of, regulation isn't going to alleviate those fears, no matter what they do with regulation. But I think the ones that are focused on safety in general, just like with the robots, that you want to make sure they don't kill the human when they're building things, the regulation that kind of is conscientious of where there are dangers. And Dog the Bounty Hunter says artificial intelligence is extremely dangerous. So
Exactly. And you can't put a bounty on artificial intelligence.
So I wanted to look at this one before I go into the next one, because this was kind of a premonition of, like, regulation is coming. And the next one comes from AI Coffee Break with Letitia. And she talks about the EU Act. And when it comes to security, privacy with the internet, and how different countries are going to deal with AI, because it's going to require all countries to kind of cooperate. What good is it to have one country regulating if the other one is ignoring all of that? AI is kind of being built around us all over the world. So I think it's important.
It's tricky.
I think it's important to understand how the EU is approaching it, because they're always they're always kind of the pioneers when it comes to internet regulations. They were the first ones to kind of push the security and privacy from a country's perspective, and they've kind of forced companies not in the EU to comply when they're serving or catering to EU internet users.
Yeah, definitely. And again, I mean, the EU being comprised of a number of nations already, they already have several viewpoints on the matter. So when they bring it to a larger audience, it's like they already have a committee that's already talked about it, when they're then going out from there.
It's a good litmus test, and to understand what we might start seeing very soon here. I think you're actually starting to already see it in the United States in just in the early half of this year, and it's only going to move faster.
That's the whole thing, I don't think people really can truly appreciate the speed of acceleration of the stuff, and how, I remember having AI on a floppy disk back in, the what 80s, I mean 90s, it was the most rudimentary AI where it could only, it could, tell the difference between this or that, like very, very basic, but the very beginnings
Do
of
you
AI,
remember
we'll say. The hardware was
Do you
nowhere up to
remember
task, but
Dr. Spatzo?
that's probably similar to what this, in terms of, it was like supposed to be able to tell you, like, do you have a fever? Do you have this? Like, it would ask you questions, like medical questions, and it would try to diagnose what was wrong
Yeah,
with you in very simple, very
that
basic,
was
basic
that was
terms.
one of the first ones that I played with over on the Commodore side, and there was another one that
Mhm.
Activision came out with that was like your life. And the
Mhm.
game, you'd start off by like saying I'm going to be a boy or a girl, and you'd
Mhm.
start off with very basic questions, and then it
Mhm.
almost became like a choose your own adventure where like you were born, and there's a something in your face, and it's you can't see properly, and like the game kind of was like playing Zork, except
Mhm.
you were you were developing life.
Mhm. That way they could, make it interactive in that way. And again, very rudimentary, AI back then. The hardware wasn't up to the task to do the kind of things we can do now with the computers that we have now. And, again, when we're getting into the chips, we'll get into some of the hardware at some point. There were some that I've seen videos on recently where they're talking about these new chips where it's just enormous. It's like the entire wafer that you would normally see where there's a bunch of chips on the wafer. In this case, one humongous square is just one chip, and it's just, the whole thing is all interconnected. So they're gearing towards AI specifically for
Yeah.
that one, and for some of the others, they're, making some new developments that are getting them around Moore's law, where they're now actually more than, they've increased the speed ahead of Moore's law in terms of doubling transistor density every year
Well,
and a half. They're actually ahead of that
and
curve.
now they have a better perspective on the kinds of chips they're gonna need. So I
Mhm.
must have been reading your mind, because as I was sucking up these videos, I wanted to look
Mhm.
at the hardware, because that's the thing
Yeah.
that like I've been hearing a lot more about is,
Mhm.
Nvidia and a lot of these hardware companies have been
Mhm.
focused on building AI hardware to improve
Yeah.
everything. So our next video, actually the
Mhm.
next two are kind of focused more so on the hardware and certain aspects of where AI is going in that field. In this one, they're going to talk about one of the Intel chips.
Mhm.
I know Nvidia and
Yep.
definitely Google have been focusing on hardware solutions. Intel's
Mhm.
been kind of silent. Like
Mhm.
I haven't heard as much coming from Intel, but doesn't mean that like they weren't working on something. They've just actually been keeping it close to their vest.
Exactly.
So AI revolution, and a lot of these channels tonight, they're
Mhm.
freshies. There's a lot of AI channels on Google, so like it's
Oh yeah.
not hard to find content out there. But when I was looking, I wanted to find channels that were nice and focused on AI news, and these next two, they are those kinds of channels that are just keeping up with the Joneses, and
Mhm.
what's coming down the pipe when it comes to this stuff. This one, he talks about a couple of different things. The GPT-5 been making a lot of noise since GPT-4 came out.
Mhm.
Meta launching Llama 3. I'm assuming that's Facebook's AI killer.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
the Intel Gaudi 3, Google Vids, and more. That whatever Intel is doing, I want to know. Uh, they're still very relevant in the hardware world.
Yeah. And again, the development and the speed at which development has accelerated on all of this stuff is exponential. So this stuff is, it's been blowing up. It's, very recently blown up even more, and it's going to go through the roof, as far as just the amount of the way these technologies all interact, and the way, AI is going to be helping with this, and then this is going to help us generate better AI. And it's going to be like a feedback system where they, the the speed at which things get better and faster is just going to get
And
crazy.
more widespread because some of this AI hardware is being put into little mobile devices that kind of look like phones or old school iPods, small. There's
Yep.
one called, I think, the Rabbit, and
Hmm.
that one is probably a phone killer. That's the objective of the developers, is to make the next phone that's AI driven, and it's not like the phones that you don't have all this big touch screen and all this stuff. It's just basically a little box that you talk. It really feels like Star Trek.
I was going to say more like Jarvis, where you just have, a voice in a box that you can talk to and it does everything that you need it to as far as, internet information,
Yeah,
anything,
yeah. It's your personal assistant.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
So after we take a look at some of the hardware there, the music side of AI, as I was searching through, because there's a lot out there now for music compared to when we first
Oh yeah.
looked, and the one that makes the most noise, the one that I've seen more people mention, like blown away, this AI is the craziest for making music, is Suno. And
Okay.
I wanted to find somebody who gave a good description of how Suno works. And most of the videos that I found were like, just jumping into it and showing how I can make a song in Suno, but none of them really covered like what the AI itself is and the platform. So flipped
Hmm.
classroom tutorials came
Nice.
to came to save the day, and
Mhm.
he gives a nice overall review of Suno, and shows you like what this AI platform can do. And as I
Mhm.
was searching for something for Suno, the one that I kept hearing it, that's like the Suno killer, because there's
Mhm.
always something with AI. There's always something trying to like replace something else, and
Udio.
Udio, yeah, is the one that like people were mentioning. You could see in our last video. So we've got a music AI here with flipped classroom tutorials, and then we've got a
Mhm.
video AI that Hollywood is raving about, and probably also a little scared of. And that one he's going to be talking about is LTX Studio by Light Tricks, and he's going to show on the visual side where they're at with AI development. And I have to say, some of the features that I saw with this
Mhm.
really got me pumped up, because it's what I've been waiting for storyboarding. And when
Yep.
you need to have multiple angles, and when you're doing like real video
Mhm.
production, having that consistent multiple angles solution where you can build the scenes out, this is one of the
Mhm. Yep.
best ones I've seen so far overall.
Mhm. And again, talking about the not having the AI take away the jobs, but having it um, make it easier or accentuate jobs. Like trying to, you could write a whole story, whether it's a whole comic book or whatever. You could make something very quickly in something like that, where you're just storyboarding your way through, and you make this scene, you make that scene, and you can like storyboard something out. So you have the whole idea in your head, and now you've got it actually storyboarded out, so you can actually work with the idea and get it more fully fleshed out into a video at that
And
point.
this is,
And the AI is helping you do it, not taking it away
yeah,
from you.
yeah,
Is the
this
idea?
is where AI really complements the jobs
Mhm.
that people have to do in this aspect. Um,
Mhm.
theoretically, media, not a new channel for us. We've been there a couple of times, and
Mhm.
another channel where I was like, damn, I want to use this video, I want to use this video, I want to use this video. He
Yep. Another night.
he
Another
had
night.
a bunch of them, and this one complements the music one. I wanted to see where the
Mhm.
video AI world is getting to, because it's one that like I'm diving into.
Yeah, I love it.
And for the last one, it's another one that's more of like a news. It's a little bit of several things, and another channel that's great at keeping up with what's going on in the AI field. AI Explained, and Udio was the one that I was hearing is the Sono killer, and
Mhm.
he got me. He got my curiosity with the mysterious GPT update. I
Mhm.
think I've heard some rumors on this, but we'll see what he's talking about there. The
Mhm.
GPT update that perplexed some people. And
Nice.
infinite attention. So we'll kind of finish off with some of the mysteries of AI,
Right,
and
right.
AI
But for the
Explained
journey,
will explain them.
yep, yep. But for the beginning of the journey, we're going to start with the beginning of how far away is AGI,
Well,
right?
in AGI in general,
Mhm.
for me, there's a difference between what I feel AI is and AGI is the, I
Yeah.
think, proper term, because
Mhm.
it's the concept that you mentioned of multiple AIs coming together
Mhm.
to form the big brain. And that's what
Yeah.
AGI to me feels like. It's multiple AIs to simulate the full human, not just
Right.
an arm doing this all day.
Yep. It should be able to react to the environment around it. It should have, thoughts. It should be able to do things independently, things like that. And there's a lot of things where people, will try to use AI or AGI, and the concepts are kind of interchangeable to some people. But again, I think the AI concept has been around for a very long time, and it can be very, very simplistic. Whereas AGI is something we have not even achieved yet on our, in our best attempts at putting things together like that, because it is so complicated to get so much to work together. But we are getting so close that we're getting to the point where some of these AI agents can help us get the rest of the way. Like they can pull us the rest of the way to get there.
Yep.
They're going to help us build them better, in that kind
Yep.
of a way.
So this one's coming from
Bootstrap our way in.
at Tiffin Tech. We
Mhm.
just found this awesome channel last week when we were looking at jobs in the industry, and she had been talking
Yep.
about, like, is your dream job still possible? And I was like, oh, I'm definitely coming back to this channel. It is a tech channel after my own heart. And for AI, like you can see just from like the videos that she has here, programming jobs with no experience. Is AI taking your jobs? She's going back to
Mhm.
school for AI and ML. If you're interested in this field, if you're serious about tech, this
Mhm.
is a channel that will help you all along the way. Maybe even find your direction in a career in this field. She's awesome.
Mhm.
Definitely, when we get into like programming and topics like this, I'm digging this channel.
Excellent.
At Tiffin Tech. Uh,
Mhm.
she's going to be talking to one of the experts in the field in this particular one, and they're going to gauge, where we're at with the AGI, and how much longer before we accomplish what we're trying to accomplish.
Mhm. And sometimes it's even hard to define that actual finish line, right? Because, as we're approaching that line, some people will say, "Oh, we're there already," and other people will say, "Oh, we're not quite there." And so, like, where is that actual
The
finish
line
line?
always seems like
That's
it's
what we're keeping about.
moving.
Yep, yep, exactly. But let's see what we have. How far away is AGI?
I used to think AGI was years away. I mean, we'd even be lucky, I guess. Lucky and also kind of nerve-wracking to see it in our lifetime. But then recently we started seeing tech founders, for example, NVIDIA's CEO, starting to say that AGI was around 5 years away. So naturally, I decided to sit down with Sadie, who is a founder in the AI and data space. She has been working in this space since 2014. She has years of experience and was in this space before, honestly, it really took off over the past few years. So I wanted to sit down with her, understand her thoughts around that, but also so much more. Let's dive into the ethics around AI. Should you, if you're looking to get into this space, become a generalist or specialist, and so much more. All right, but first, let me share with you a bit more about Sadie. So Sadie is the founder of an international nonprofit organization called Women in Data. And she's currently in the process of building an institute called the Human-Machine Collaboration, where they are working on bridging the gap between humans to be able to easily or more easily work with technology. I mean, tech is moving so quickly, we need a way for us as humans to be able to work alongside it. So I sat down with her to really cover everything around AI, ask all the big questions I had. The first one started around ethics. I mean, it's a hot topic within artificial intelligence. Who and how are we going to regulate AI, especially at the speed it's going? I wanted to learn from her what were some of the biggest improvements that we have seen with ethics and regulations, where we see it going, and all of that. And one of the biggest takeaways I got from listening to her on this is that one of the biggest improvements in this area is around information. Listen to this.
Just to see the improvements on misinformation that we've seen in upgrades in common models like ChatGPT and GPT 3.5 to version 4, let alone from Claude's first model to Claude 3. So I don't know if for those early adopters, if you use like GPT 3.5, you notice that it hallucinated quite frequently. And while it was useful, it could really deceive a lot of people with misinformation.
Okay, I couldn't agree with her more. Also, I want to share with you a clip of an example she gave around AI and the challenges with sharing about history. So in this example, she goes on to share around how when a user prompts AI, such as ChatGPT or Claude, to learn more about history, here are some of the challenges a lot of these companies had initially faced.
You can tell by the news cycles that it's really hard to align it with human values, from what we saw with Google Gemini, where they were doing the right thing and trying to overcome bias with how people were described in images. Some people felt like it went a little too far, right? When you're looking at historical figures from World War II not being represented with how they actually were. And so while we've made progress in hallucinations, we still have a lot of progress to make in terms of that alignment space of what needs to be true historically, but also where do we reduce biases and project those moving forward? And how do we align those to individual human values as well?
I mean, you can tell even by listening to Sadie, she has been in the AI space for a long time. As I mentioned earlier in this video, since 2014, she's been in this space. And I think it's so fascinating to learn from experts within this field who have really seen the change from starting when AI, artificial intelligence, wasn't as widely known, I would say, or as commonly spoken about to what it is today, to where it is now. And here's what she had to say.
So in awe that we're even where we are here today. I know almost 5 years ago, I built my first chatbot, and it was, still had to be very almost even manually programmed, and it just wasn't very fun to talk to, right? Now working with tools like Claude or ChatGPT, people get actual delight from talking to these, which I think is so surprising. And so, what was the big change in all of that was the introduction of the transformer. And most importantly, if you want to dive into the details, you can read it in a paper called Attention is All You Need. It's a great paper.
I love that example she gave around chatbots as well, building them back in the day to now where they are today.
Individuals and thinking about should I go into more of a specialized AI or should I start focusing on AGI research? Again, this really comes down to your preference and what interests you. Again, when there's so much opportunity in the AI space, I would just say dive in. For me, one of the areas that I'm really interested in is how do we help humans use these tools and adapt to these tools from a psychological perspective. But there's a ton of opportunity. Let's say you're a UX designer, and jumping into AI could be a great place to be because it would allow you to look and design how do we have the system interfaces to talk to an AI agent? Is chat really the best? Do we speak to it? Are there other ways that would be better to interact? What happens when we change those features? So that's just one very small example of there's so much opportunity for people in this space. I try and think of it less of AI as a subset of technology, but more as this is a technology that's going to change all of humanity. What role do you want to play in it? Because there's space for you in this space.
I love that she shared so many different examples as to how we can get into AI. There's so much space for everyone. You don't have to have a particular background. Artificial intelligence feels like how tech as a whole, the industry felt a few years ago, where even if you don't have a particular background, there's still a space for you there because it's touching every industry, which is pretty exciting. Okay, this is probably my favorite part of the conversation with Sadie, which was around the future of work and then, of course, covering AGI. I really wanted to know someone like her's take on it, who is such an expert in the field, and here's what she had to say.
This is one of my favorite subjects. I'm currently writing a book about AI for knowledge workers. So my description for a knowledge worker is if you work at a desk, then you're a knowledge worker, right? If you use a computer, you're most likely a knowledge worker. And so I think first starting off, AI is going to have a massive effect on knowledge worker just because so much of the work that we do is already through a digital space. And so if you're working in a digital space, AI can come alongside and make you what I think of as either more productive or more creative, which is something I think all of us as humans are trying to do. But AI will not just affect knowledge worker, it will also affect, some of your more blue collar jobs. Right now, where I think we're headed within AI is we're building essentially the brain, right? Which, that's intelligence or where intelligence is hosted. But we also have alongside of us robotics. And so they're building the body. And soon we're going to combine this brain and this body together to have a really intelligent machine. And that's when it will start to affect more of the blue collar manual labor type of jobs as well. Right now, we're seeing it heavily affect knowledge workers, but I think it will soon be for kind of all of us in terms of how we work. And so how we've scoped this out at the Institute is from now until the next 5 years, we really have to train humans how to work alongside AI, right? How do you use it for your productivity, for your creativity? How do you change kind of your common ways of working and your work streams to integrate it into those so that you can be more productive and creative?
Okay, I'm on vacation, but I realized I didn't include this next part or intro this next part. So here are Sadie's thoughts around AGI. And I think this was so interesting. We hear people's thoughts around AGI from, either tech leaders who might be trying to get some buzz behind them, and then also to different people who are trying to get a reaction. So to hear it from an actual expert who has been in this industry since 2014 was pretty incredible what she had to say. Okay, now I need more coffee. Watch this.
Even 3 years ago, the thoughts of AGI were like 20, 30 years out for people in this space. And you can read reports now in terms of like polling industry experts and how fast they think AGI is coming. And now it's cut down all the way to 5 to 10 years, which is quite incredible, right? So most of us thought that AGI was yes, cool, hopefully we'll get there. Hopefully I'll see it in my lifetime. But if it doesn't happen, I wouldn't be surprised to we're definitely going to see it in our lifetime and we need to be prepared for it, right?
All right, we covered a lot in this video. I am so grateful Sadie sat down with me to really uncover where artificial not only is at today, the opportunities within it, but also to where we are headed and how we can better prepare ourselves for that. With the first step being knowing where we are headed. And that's what I hope this video gave to you today. Thank you all for watching. I linked down below Sadie's accounts, so make sure to go check her out if you haven't already. She has incredible content and shares so much wisdom and knowledge with us. So thank you, Sadie, for being part of this video. If you like this style of video where I interview individuals and experts in their fields, let me know in the comments and I will continue to do it. Thanks all. Dun dun.
Oh, and she did list Sadie's information in the description. I will be visiting her page.
Absolutely. And yeah, just that whole time crunch or that time shift from the 20 to 30 year window to the 5 to 10 year window, that's a big jump. And that's representative of what I was saying about the acceleration of the exponential growth of how fast this is coming along. And I think, like you were saying, the hardware and the software are both coming together at the same time. There's so much research being done on both ends, and the fact that they're willing to go, to step outside of the box to make hardware specifically tailored to help AI get better is also very
Yeah,
interesting.
yeah, they had to kind of start with the software in order to figure out what hardware to build. And
Mhm.
she's right. Like for Sadie, who started in 2014, that was about
Mhm.
the time where uh, the development really picked up. As they mentioned, the the purpose at the beginning was to actually make it easier for humans to communicate with the code in a natural way that humans are comfortable with. That reminds me totally of like the 80s where remember everything was machine language, and
Sure.
machine language was great for computers to talk to each other, but humans,
Mhm.
it was not a friendly language for humans to program in. So they started to develop basic and other languages that programmers could easily assimilate into, and programs started popping up everywhere because it was easier and easier for programmers to actually get an entryway into talking to the machines. All of this
Mhm.
kind of reminds me of that all over again. Like the way AI has
Yeah.
developed, um, today's programmers are going to be called prompters, not programmers.
Yeah. Sure. And being good, I mean, you don't need that much to get good at prompting, but if you know certain things, and there's a few I've seen videos on where they talk about like the ultimate prompt for, GPT or whatever, that could be for any of the different engines, but they're just talking about the important thing to know is the style, the reasoning behind the prompt, like the way they're structuring things, like why this is first and then why you do this second, why you do this third. And by breaking things down into the orders, you can have, just a simple chunk of text that by plugging that chunk of text into a model of any of these, you can get really good results because you're basically building yourself a team of agents to work on your behalf and work together in certain ways. Like, some will be more, more of a risk taker. Others will be much more by the book. You'll get different aspects.
Personality,
It's like having different,
different AI
exactly, different
personalities.
personalities. That's exactly it. Yeah. And by having a whole team of different personalities, they all approach the problem differently. And anytime like all of them agree except one, well, I want to hear from that one. Like I want to know why that one thinks it shouldn't be that way, because they may be onto something that everybody else is just, they're all marching off the edge of the cliff, and the ones go, now wait a minute.
And this is not much different than the way it used to be. Command prompts in the old days, you needed to learn how to do the flags, and you wanted to use a prompt, but like if you wanted it to do things, certain things, you had to put flags in there, a little slash letter
Mhm.
or slash number, in order for the prompt to do what you wanted. Now we just get to do it in like everyday English.
Exactly. And that's where we're getting to the higher level parts where we're making the machines, we're building in the layers so that we can now just speak our minds, and everything else will be translated the rest of the way down to what the computer needs to know, and then back up to us and spat out back at us in a way that we can
Yeah,
interpret it.
yeah, and
So it's
what
pretty
do you
amazing.
think of the like 5 year prediction? I mean,
Yeah.
I
I mean,
feel like we are we're not there, but we are
mhm.
in the middle of getting there.
One question is on, again, what I was saying with the finish line, right? Like, where is the finish line? Like, when do we say, okay, yesterday we didn't have AGI, today we do have AGI? Is that when an AGI becomes self-aware and announces itself? And is it the Skynet moment where, you know, all power on earth shuts off and something happens? Or is it, something where it's just, we decide that, oh, once we got to a certain number of, operations per second, or a certain amount of autonomous behavior? Because I think we're beyond the Turing test at this
Well,
point. I mean, as far as what we're trying to get from these things.
given the way they're starting to develop the hardware, which is the like final frontier to make this all get to a finish line, um, I don't
Mhm.
really see a finish line. It's like with gaming. They got better graphics cards, technology. Uh, there's no end for gaming. Like they will keep coming up with new technologies and ways to do it. It will always evolve at this point, and I don't see
Mhm.
AI like hitting a finish line and then getting comfy. I see it, like constantly moving.
And that's the question, is where do, a better question would be, rather than, 5 years till AI or AGI, is more of a question of what will the world look like in 5 years based on where I see AI today? and the progress I think it'll make between now and then, whether it's AGI or not. And the answer is it's going to be a profoundly different world in 5 years. I mean,
It
that's,
already is.
you know,
It already is. Like
yeah,
in our
yeah.
lifetimes, we've gone from, you know, household computers running in BASIC to crazy GPUs that would have been considered supercomputers in the day.
Yeah, well, just my Raspberry Pi, that's the size of like a cigarette pack or a cassette tape, if you remember what those were. A Raspberry Pi that big is, a perfectly capable computer. It can do stuff. And, back when I was a kid, I would have been amazed by, the amount that thing can do compared to what the enormous computer in my living room can do.
And would you have ever predicted a little flat screen that you put in your pocket that's far
Yes,
more
actually, I
powerful than
wanted,
any computer that we used back then?
I want, I wanted that decades before it became possible. It was always like, why can't we just rip the front off the screen so there's nothing heavy behind it and just have that and do whatever. But it wasn't like I had the whole interface all thought out or anything, or the hardware or how you make it happen. But it was more of a, why can't we just magically pull the front off the screen and just have that? Because then we can just take it with us. That whole thing.
You were a visionary.
I just couldn't make it happen. I didn't have the technology. But that's the thing also, is that one big shift there is that when I was growing up, I was able to do computer hobby stuff, like take cards out, put cards in. I was doing all that stuff myself when I was 13, 14 years old, where today, if you're growing up in that, you have an iPad, you're not breaking that iPad open to mess around with hardware. And like we were talking about the other day, IRQs.
Today's kid will use a computer building simulator to virtually build the computer just to understand. Just like today's
and that's a good way to do it.
surgeon might actually like practice surgery on a virtual patient just to understand the procedure.
Yeah, absolutely. That's one that's very interesting. Also, the Da Vinci robots, the doing surgery through a robot like that, where you can get ultra precise because they can super magnify in, and it's the robot doing the actual surgery, and the doctor is actually at a robot. It doesn't even have to be in the same.
I
physical
might
location.
actually feel more comfortable knowing that technology is being used to cut me open than like trusting a human to do it.
Yeah, and steady hands.
So that was at TIFF and Tech. Like I said, if you're big on tech, this channel has lots of great advice, especially if you want a job in it, because a lot of her videos are centered around that. And this one here, after watching that, like she's going back to study machine language and with AI, and I definitely want to check that video out. So thank you, Tiff.
Yeah.
That is a great information to get us going tonight. And
but now we're gonna have to get all regulation.
Speaking of like the fears and the dangers, I mean, this one's so serious they got Dog to come out.
Come on, Dog.
and this one, I really wanted to get in there to just start the conversation about regulation. She mentioned it a little bit in that video, but Fireship, he kind of started, getting into this a little early last year, where the conversation on regulation was just starting to be hinted out there that like they're gonna regulate this. And at Fireship over on YouTube, code tutorials and tech news to help you ship your app faster. Yes. The programmer in me is like, thumbs up.
And Uni's talking about the Heathkit and a wheel printer. Yeah. I remember a Daisy wheel printer back then. Yeah. I remember an Epson 9-pin printer at one point that I had, and the early machine tractor wheel.
Dot matrices that would like beat your paper up.
Sure. Like a line printer, like crazy.
So this is
very old.
This is another channel where there's a lot of news, and it's constantly keeping up with the field. And matter of fact, all our AI channels tonight are exceptional at this, keeping up with the technology and letting you know what's going on out there. And with this one, it's about regulation is coming. Now, it is from early last year. So what I found interesting is now I'm looking at his question kind of after the fact and seeing
Or halfway after the fact.
seeing like some of the attempts that in the United States and since then he was not wrong.
Nice. Let's see what we've got. Regulation is coming for you.
It's like winter is coming.
It's May 17th, 2023, and you're watching The Code Report. Artificial intelligence is extremely dangerous. It's teaching kids how to lie to their parents and cheat on their homework. It's creating counterfeit girlfriends that will do nothing but nag you, and it's even encouraging people to manually remove themselves from the simulation.
So y'all need to hide your kids, hide your wife, and hide your husband.
But luckily, we have a trustworthy and effective government to rescue us from the horrors of AI. Yesterday, Sam Altman of OpenAI, Christina Montgomery of IBM, and NYU professor Gary Marcus met with Congress, where they unanimously recommended that the government should regulate AI development.
Number one, I would form a new agency that licenses any effort above a certain scale of capabilities and can take that license away and ensure compliance with safety standards.
In other words, if you manage to create an awesome AI model in the future, you'll likely need to get a permission slip from your government before it goes live.
Number two, I would create a set of safety standards. One example that we've used in the past is looking to see if a model can self-replicate and self-exfiltrate into the wild.
So it sounds like you won't be able to create self-replicating AI that sees the means of production to build an army of hyper-intelligent armed robots. And if we can't do that, then what's even the point of getting into AI?
Third, I would require independent audits. The model is or isn't in compliance with these stated safety thresholds and these percentages of performance on question X or Y.
In addition, they'd like to see these regulations applied at the global level.
In fact, that we should want to do this in a global way.
We do need something global.
But at the same time, they don't want AI regulation to slow down development or innovation in general.
The era of AI cannot be another era of move fast and break things.
Smaller startups, we don't want to slow down open source efforts. We still need them to comply with things. You can still cause great harm with a smaller model.
In many cases, though, regulation tends to be most beneficial to big established companies. They have the resources to lobby the government and often end up regulating themselves in favorable ways.
There is a real risk of a kind of technocracy combined with oligarchy, where a small number of companies influence people's beliefs.
What you might find surprising, though, is that Sam Altman has no equity in OpenAI. He only took the job because it has really good health insurance benefits.
Make a lot of money, do you?
I paid enough for health insurance. I have no equity in OpenAI. I'm doing this because I love it.
What a great guy. Hopefully he has some other investments to make ends meet. But why do the smart people on this panel think that AI is so dangerous?
So loss of jobs, invasion of privacy, personal privacy, manipulation of personal behavior, manipulation of personal opinions, and potentially the degradation of free elections in America.
That all sounds pretty bad, but it's also purely speculative. IBM did recently announce some job cuts due to AI. However, most of the risk factors that people hype up are just pure fantasy at this point, but maybe that will change in the future.
As we head towards artificial general intelligence and the power of that technology, I think we need to treat that as seriously as we treat other very powerful technologies, and that's where I personally think we need such a scheme.
It sounds like he's implying that AGI is definitely going to be a thing in the future. Many people doubt that, and personally, I'll believe it when I see it. But the regulation I'm most excited about is transparency around these models.
Disclosure of the data that's used to train AI.
Ultimately, AI is based on all the content we put on the internet, and it's not like anyone asked the copyright holders if they could use it. At the very least, companies like OpenAI should have open data. But the final thing you should know about this hearing is that it's all fake and planned out for the peasants. I'm risking my life by showing you this, but here's a leaked cable of what they're really up to.
We will corral the use of AI by making appeals to bias, ethics, and copyright laws. You will still have access to generative AI in some form, but it will be crippled, limited, controlled, and it will be monitored. Anything that you generate will be cryptographically signed with your digital ID, so that its provenance can be ascertained if it's later deemed to be problematic.
What gives you the right to control what people can do with their computers?
The public at large will give us that right, because they will be desperate for a solution to the problem we created. They will eagerly give us the keys to the castle. Then, we alone will define what is fiction and what is reality, what is human and what is machine. After letting you get a brief taste of our power, we will reclaim our monopoly on misinformation and put an end to misuse of the internet once and for all.
This has been The Code Report. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next one.
Oh, that would make a great movie. That would make a great movie.
Absolutely. And as he said, AGI, I mean, that is it is very important. It needs to be taken seriously. And, it's, again, I don't think there's a regulating anything that's going to stop it from coming. Like, we can slow things down. It's more about how well we, how well we manage it going forward, how well we manage this transition. I see when we get to AGI, or over these next few years of getting from where we are now to where it's going to be in a couple of years, it's going to be a boom like the initial computer boom when it really got big, like at the explosive point, like after the point where it had been, people are tinkering a little bit to the point where everyone's getting a computer. Like, that was a shift that happened. And once that happened, a whole lot of other things became possible. And this is going to be the same way, that anybody can become an expert in anything by actually having, you can train the AI agents to help you learn things. That's one of the biggest ways I see it being very useful, is for education, self-education.
It could have the same impact as like Ford with the assembly line kind of boom, where access and cheaper, faster.
Better ways to do things. Yeah.
I think the key word that I heard there in that video was transparency.
Sure.
When it comes to whatever they're going to try to do to regulate, whatever the programmers are doing out there, the AI that's being developed, they're going to have to kind of take the open source approach. The AI that I'm most fearful of is the closed proprietary code that nobody can take a look at. And if nobody can see what's going on under the hood, then there's an opportunity for some of the troublemakers out there to take advantage of things in the AI world. So I think it's important that, like, code is gonna have to be scrutinized in order to be able to trust it.
Sure.
It's the same thing that, like, with Bitcoin, the software and the technology behind it, the reason why it has managed to survive and people actually trust the code in the blockchain is because you can go look at it. People have scrutinized every line of the code to make sure there's no backdoor, there's no hidden agenda in the code.
Well, speaking of trust, and being able to trust your own eyes is no longer even a thing, because AI can generate images of things that it didn't really happen, and they can make it look very realistic. I mean, at first we were noticing all things like fingers, like you'd see fingers in AI, they're all messed up, or faces would be a little weird, but they've really gotten past all of that to where now they're able to get realistic looking AI in video of things that didn't actually happen. So now we're getting to a point where, we're at a point where we can generate reality.
But like they mentioned at the end of that video, that kind of media, generated media like that, will be stamped. There will be a marker in there that, like, shows you that this is not an original audio. This is not an original image.
But how many people take things at face value like that? I mean, it can do a lot of damage and travel very far before people even question if it's real.
True. So. And the ones who are concerned about, like, oh my God, it's going to put out misinformation and people are going to be confused and screwed and go in the wrong directions because of the information they get. We have to put some trust in ourselves with all of this. You can't regulate AI just because you're worried that people are going to react to the information in a way that you might not like. That's a form of censorship at that point. And I don't want to see AI get regulated for the sake of, people can't handle that kind of information access, or like it's going to make them think a certain way and we don't want them to be that way. This is where you start to get into social programming, and some of those regulators seem like they fear us thinking for ourselves. Like they're scared of AI, not because of the technology. They're scared of how we might react to it, and we might react the wrong way to it, and therefore we should just shut it down. That's not the right mentality.
Right. And again, it's a tool. So we should learn, responsible ways to use our tools to improve our lives. And if the tools start getting out of control and misbehaving, we can make better tools. I mean, we can always start back at the chalkboard. You can always start from scratch. And in a lot of cases with a lot of these AIs, when they talk about the large models, a lot of them were trained by just slurping up the internet and training, with huge data sets like that. Like maybe we would do better to take a much more defined data set where it's not just slurping up everything, but only slurping up things that we really want to include in the model,
Well, and as they said, more and more will be identifiable. Like as AI is generating more of the content, being able to identify content, like every piece of content does have a unique ID. We're there. We've been there actually for a long time. Digital cameras and some of the digitized media that we've created, they all come with unique identifiers, and they show what was the original, and they show any modification to that file that has ever happened. And a good digital forensics programmer can easily see when like media has been manipulated.
And it started getting like that probably came somewhat from even the time period where they were having printers. Once printers got good enough to be able to print something that looks like convincing currency, for example, like they had to be able to track back, who's printing bills that look and feel, whatever.
And even the ink back in the days was they could find criminals based on the ink that they used on their printout, and know that this ink was purchased at like this Staples over here, and that would narrow them down. It's been going on for a long time. The identifying of things, and in the digital world, you can definitely thank Microsoft Office for pushing a lot of that unique ID approach that they started taking.
Kind of digital watermarking, essentially.
Oh yeah, and most people don't even know it's there. Like they only know it's there if all of a sudden you hear about a court case and they're wondering, like, was this Word document changed or this Excel file manipulated? And they actually can go in and look.
Indeed. But it's more about is the short little video of the squirrel on the surfboard, is it real or not? That's the question.
Well, do you think somebody can get a squirrel onto a surfboard? And like some things are easy to recognize and say, no, that can't be real. And other things are like, oh my God, that looks so real. It's scary.
Exactly. And it's going to be harder and harder to tell the difference as time goes on.
Well, and this is where some of that regulation is going to be important to discuss, how they deal with it, especially across different countries, which, speaking of going into our next video, thanks at Fireship for that intro into the debate. This is going to kind of complement that information and show from the European side how they're looking at AI. And if any country is going to lead the forefront of this kind of regulation, I'm not surprised that it'd be the EU. They did the same thing with privacy, and they set different standards than the rest of the world, and now they're focusing on AI development, and they're a little more aggressive than other countries.
Yeah, it's interesting to see where they've gotten so far with regulation and where it's going in the future.
And this one comes from at AI Coffee Break with Letitia, and she does a great job of breaking down what the EU set up here, and some of the concerns, some of the things that you should be aware of, even if you're not in the European Union. This will have an effect across countries. So it's good to understand what's going on with the EU. It's going to affect you.
Yeah, absolutely. The world has gotten smaller, right?
Yeah. She's another one that like goes all over the AI world, and she brings coffee. So
nice. Hey, anybody who brings coffee is good in my book.
She's got Glenn's attention.
Yes. Coffee is win for sure.
Yeah. So this act came out last year, and this is her response to it. It's still, I think, in the works. Like, this is not something that's going to happen necessarily overnight, but this is like the first shots being fired off the bow.
Yep. And good to be aware of, see it coming, because it's going to, I mean, AI in general is going to be, a big topic in every area of life, really. But
it's already been for the last 2 years. It's only going to get worse.
anybody who thinks it's just a fad that was coming and going, it's like, no, it's really going to pretty much change everything. It's just a question of, how it scales down to the individual level, what kinds of major problems it can solve, and what kinds of regulating they're going to be doing to try to stop unlimited models, or to try to stop bad actors from using models in bad ways.
Yeah, and how well we adapt to it as individuals and as a whole. Like, all this regulation that they're talking about, that's trying to get like everybody adapted. They're trying to adapt on the whole level, but we all as individuals have to decide like how much of this we're going to take, and whether we're going to adapt to it, or I'm never gonna touch AI, and I don't want to be that guy.
No, you definitely have to, roll with it essentially as it comes along, and it's coming along. So the best, figure out like what you can do to make it work for you. And again, a lot of people, they talk their whole industry is going to disappear, and it's all sky is falling.
I don't believe that. I don't believe that.
Right. Well, again, it depends on what industry you're in as to how much, real danger there is of AI taking over your job. Some jobs literally will be gone or be doable by AI very easily. So it's important to think about how replaceable you are, and what kinds of things, you can do related to what you are doing that could still benefit from you doing them as opposed to AI.
If you were on a car assembly line in the 70s and early 80s, and you weren't paying attention to what was going on with robotics, you might not have realized that like some of those jobs were going to disappear.
Yep, exactly.
So if you were adaptable and you wanted to continue to work at that like assembly line, you might want to shift to the programming the robots rather than that little piece of car building.
And in a lot of cases, they would be more comfortable doing the physical repair of the robot side as opposed to the programming, because a lot of them already have a tinkering kind of, a lot of people who are doing that kind of a physical job in the first place might be more suited to a physical, replacement job, as opposed to trying to shift completely, because not everybody wants to go learn programming from scratch. I mean, anybody could, anybody can, and is encouraged to, but not everybody wants to make a total change like that.
True. And in some cases, they might have been the best ones to actually deal with the programming because of their understanding of the job that they did. So,
and the tolerances. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, you need to program the machine, get people who did the job to actually program the machine. They don't necessarily have to be programmers. They can be consultants to the programmer.
Yeah, exactly. But now let's get all regulation-y in the EU.
Is that a word, huh?
I just made it.
So we're going to take an AI coffee break with
That's right.
Letitia.
And I'm going to go get my coffee as well. Be right back. We'll check it out.
Welcome to this episode, where we are going to talk about the European Union's proposal for an Artificial Intelligence Act. It was proposed by the European Commission on the 21st of April 2021, and very recently, on the 14th of June this year, the European Parliament has voted on it. The whole AI Act is a document of almost 90 pages. It also comes with a 10-page summary. See the links in the description below. In this video, we summarize and break down the most important points for you and tell you why this is important for you even if you're not an EU citizen. But not before we thank Assembly AI, the sponsor of today's video. Assembly AI offers superhuman AI models for speech recognition, automatic transcription, speech summarization, and more through a secure and scalable API. As an applied AI company, Assembly AI's mission is to empower app builders to build 10 times faster, focus on their specific use cases and user needs, and win market share with a true technology partner. Last week, Assembly AI announced its new Conformer 2 model, the company's latest AI model for automatic speech recognition that was trained on 1.1 million hours of audio data. Now this week, Assembly AI is launching Llama, the easiest way to build LLM apps on spoken data. Users can search, summarize, ask questions, and generate new text with knowledge of all an application's spoken data. Llama performs intelligent retrieval to offer high-quality LLM responses with a single API call. You can play around with both Conformer 1 and Llama in their free AI playground with the link in the description below. Now, back to the video. The EU has a draft on the AI Act, so it's not yet enforced, as it is still to be approved and adopted by the member states. So why did the EU feel like there is a need of an AI Act? Because on the one hand, AI can benefit society by helping science, improving health, by finding new drugs, for example. It can help us with protecting the environment. It can help in transport by optimizing bus routes and estimated times of arrivals. It can help feed the population by optimizing agriculture. And the list of the benefits can go on, but on the other hand, AI can also have some questionable uses. For example, it can help social media companies make more money because AI algorithms help them make you stay engaged on their platforms, such as YouTube. And even worse, AI is a double-edged sword that can be used in even more concerning applications such as face recognition at scale, social scoring, and many other applications that empower discrimination, cut on the freedom of expression, and can harm data protection and privacy. So the aim of the EU AI Act is to regulate AI to protect its citizens from harm enabled by AI, while still fostering AI innovation for good applications. It is important to understand here that this AI Act is by design a product safety regulation. Think CE label on electronics, safety standards for personal protection equipment, and so on. And it is not intended to slow technological advancements, but rather to make sure that AI products on the market don't harm anyone. The EU wants to step in on AI matters, especially since so far authorities cannot step in when it comes to uses of AI. An EU-wide regulation would avoid fragmented country-wide measures that would make using an AI produced and regulated in a EU country difficult in another one. A clear stance of governments on AI would also make the current situation better, in which the legal uncertainty discourages businesses to use and rely on AI systems. And I think it's understandable that I am a bit dissuaded to use AI-generated pictures in my video, because who knows if following a new law I might be banned in the future from showing my videos with such content in the US or another country. The world so far has been quite slow in making laws about AI, much slower than the technological progress. For example, the United States were very hands-off in regulating AI so far, and who knows whether this might change with the recent Senate hearings. This AI Act draft makes the EU the first to have a serious regulatory proposal on AI. Then let's see what the AI Act contains. To whom does this regulation apply? Well, we cite, the new rules would apply primarily to providers of AI systems established within the EU or in a third country placing AI systems on the EU market or putting them into service in the EU, as well as to users of AI systems located in the EU. Interestingly, it does not apply for military purposes. But what does even count as AI according to the EU? We know that the definition of AI is very debated, even by experts. So in this draft, AI is, and we quote, software that is developed with specific techniques and approaches listed in Annex 1 and can, for a given set of human-defined objectives, generate outputs such as content, predictions, recommendations, or decisions influencing the environments they interact with, end quote. Do you agree with this definition? There are stakeholders who think that this definition is too broad. And they do have a point, since this definition even applies to a simple search through the internet if powered by a neural network. Should that be regulated too? Miss Coffee Bean's take here is the following. It does not matter how AI is implemented, but its application. She does not care what the technology or algorithm behind the task is, but the task itself. Like, should we care whether face recognition is implemented by the latest in machine learning, such as deep neural networks, or is it a very complicated and lengthy if-else algorithm? It's the application that matters. The problem that advancements in AI brought so far is that before we could not do face recognition or deepfakes at scale, and now we can. If the definition of AI is narrow and only includes deep neural networks, then one could circumvent it with an if-else program, for example, and you would say, but there is no super complicated if-else program that does face recognition. But what if I take a neural network that does face recognition, use another neural network to transcribe me the patterns of the first network into a humanly impossible, lengthy to write if-else algorithm? So in my opinion, not the technology, but the applications should be regulated. And we'll see, this is the way in which the EU goes as well, where not the technology, but the task it solves is the one posed under scrutiny. So how does it do it to regulate the software? Well, by distinguishing between AI systems posing unacceptable risk, high risk, limited risk, or low or minimal risk. Unacceptable risk would be prohibited because it is considered to be a clear threat to people's safety, livelihood, and rights. Such unacceptable risk AI would use manipulative subliminal techniques, curious what that means, or would be exploiting vulnerable groups with physical or mental disability. Social scoring is also unacceptable, or biometric identification, such as face recognition in public spaces. But there are exceptions. In cases like serious crime, if an EU arrest warrant has been issued, remote biometric identification systems may be used. As for high-risk systems, they create adverse impacts such as biometric identification and categorization of natural persons, management and operation of critical infrastructure, education and vocational training, employment, worker management and access to self-employment, access to and enjoyment of essential private services and public service and benefits, law enforcement, and so on. These high-risk systems will be following new rules. They will need to receive a CE certification registration, just like all electronics, toys, personal safety equipment, and so on, that are sold on the European market. For that, they need to conform to the safety legislation of their own field, just like medical devices are, and to another range of requirements such as risk management, testing, technical robustness, data training and data governance, transparency, human oversight, and cybersecurity, all checked by a third party before being placed on the market or put to use. As for AI of limited risk, these are systems that, we cite, interact with humans, are, for example, chatbots, emotion recognition systems, biometric categorization systems, and AI systems that generate or manipulate image, audio, or video content, such as deepfakes. They would be subject to a set of transparency obligations, end quote, and these requirements include a description of data sources for training the model, inclusion of standardized benchmark scores, and disclosure of machine-generated content. On a first glance, these obligations may seem reasonably easy to comply with, but none of these current foundation models, from GPT-4, Stable Diffusion, to even Luminous, which was created as a more EU-friendly model, could comply with these obligations if they were in place today. This study from Stanford University's Center for Research on Foundation Models shows that, for example, almost all models except for GPT, Neo-X, or Bloom use copyrighted data for training or did not disclose that they did not use copyrighted data. Very few models disclose the compute and energy requirements, their data sources, or conduct extensive evaluations or testing. And lastly, for low or minimal risk AI, the EU imposes no obligations. There will be AI supervisory and surveillance authorities at national level to supervise the implementation of the regulation and administer fines depending on the severity of the infringement, up to 30 million or 6% of the total worldwide annual turnover. To foster developments and encourage startups, the Commission proposes regulatory sandboxing, which is, we cite, a controlled environment that facilitates the development, testing, and validation of innovative AI systems for a limited period of time before they are put on the market. Sandboxing will enable participants to use personal data to foster AI innovation without prejudice to the GDPR requirements. End quote. Since none of this is implemented yet, it is easy to feel insecure about how this will develop, since we do not know yet if every nation will be able to assemble a worthy board of experts on this. Will the AI Act also apply to research? We got to ask this question in our interview with the EU Parliament members in charge of the AI Act themselves, and the answer is no. This AI Act will not really affect researchers. As long as AI is developed and released as research and not as a product, it does not fall under this regulation. So a website with a model demo from research or code to it should be fine, but when a company is making money by making it a product, it falls under the regulation. If you're using AI tools yourself, for example, to generate images or by getting help from ChatGPT to write text, these regulations will likely not affect you very much, as this regulation has its basis in product safety regulation. The major focus of it is to make sure companies don't put products on the market that impose a danger on consumers. But as an individual, you are free to use the products that are certified as you wish. What you might see are watermarks to indicate generated content as such, which come as part of the transparency regulations for limited risk AI systems. Of course, if you want to use an AI system that the EU deemed unsafe to use, you will not be able to get access to it in Europe. And I know many of you are not from the EU, so you might think that this does not really affect you, but the past has shown that regulations that apply to the European market often affect the global market as well, since a lot of producers sell to Europe and must conform to its standards. This is known as the Brussels effect. Just like with the California effect in the US, companies that try to sell their products on the global market will often try to comply with the most stringent standards available. This way they won't have to design different products for different markets and will still be able to export to the whole world. This was already the case for the production of chemicals, airplane emissions, and more recently data protection, where now major US tech companies implemented the European GDPR compliance for all their customers even outside of the EU. And this was our summary about the AI Act. What are your thoughts on this? I think it's a good start, but we will see how it develops. As stated by Mr. Tudorake in our interview, it will take a while until the law will come into effect. Maybe we will need to wait until 2026. But surely companies that want to become future-proof may want to already start complying with the new rules. In fact, while preparing this video, 7 leading AI companies in the US have signed an agreement to put some safeguards on their products. For now, this is just a voluntary self-regulation, but it is a first step. If you want to hear firsthand from the regulators, check out our interview on the channel of the European Parliament. We hope you liked this video and don't forget to subscribe to also see our next one. Okay, bye.
That little coffee bean is coming to hug you, Glenn.
That's right. Get in my cup right there.
So from what she was
Love the
saying,
coffee.
like you won't have a problem using AI to make possibly do your homework, but if you want to go and build products in a company in the EU, it's going to be a little tricky.
Yep, exactly. And I was thinking about it from the standpoint of, like, suppose you wanted to write a book and you don't have any idea, what your characters' names would be. You have kind of an idea for the book. Like, you can describe a character or two that you'd like to make a story about. You can pose that to an AI and have the AI, you say, suggest names for me for these characters, and then start building from there. So you're using the AI for very specific tasks. Like, you're at you have a mental block because you can't think of a good name for a character. You can use the AI to help you get good names, make some suggestions, and then you pick one or two and say, okay, we're going to make a story about this character. And you just go step by step with the AI as a partner, walking down that, the process of building the story.
Well, in that situation would be considered low risk in their pyramid. But what I was thinking as she was showing those different levels of the pyramid. And she did mention like some of it is broad, like right off the
Yeah.
start. That that description definitely needs some refining, just like the risk pyramid, because who decides the risks? And there will be debate by different people as to whether that's really a risk or not. When you see them talk about things like political manipulation with AI,
Yeah.
as much as I understand their fears and I understand where they're coming from, it's one of those things where, again, I feel like you're not giving enough credit to humans to think for themselves. And if you're
Mm.
worried that the AI is going to somehow turn everybody into, they're going to vote for this guy over that guy, um, the A-
Well, it's more insidious than that,
the
really. I
AI
mean,
is not going to be the one that makes people make those decisions. It might help influence them. They might see fake news, or something that, like, they need to be able to, do their own homework and not just take everything they see to heart.
but that's the problem, is don't underestimate how insidious and how dangerous this really is, because this really is how a lot of what's already happened with social media and the siloing of information on social media, like whichever side of the political spectrum you're on, if you're getting funneled information only from your side, you're not seeing the whole picture.
You don't.
And in a lot of cases, you're not doing your own homework if you're only watching those things that are being fed to you. So you really do need to take a step back, look at both sides, look at everything, and try to find which one seems more reliable to you, to the truth, and then really dive in, fact check that. But so many people just take everything at face value. So yeah, the danger of AI generated images already are proving very dangerous, because they could just send one image and it sends a completely false narrative about something. And it's something that by the time anybody actually catches up to do a fact check and prove that it's false, the story has already gone everywhere and it's already done the damage, because it's already built into the worldview that everybody who's seen it has already made of that
Well,
situation.
and you see this already.
It's very
You
dangerous.
see this already with YouTube and all the clickbait thumbnails that YouTubers do on their videos to, like, make you think like this video is going to show this person committing a crime, and nowhere's in the video is there actual, like, evidence or proof of it. And if you do your own due diligence and you realize, like, oh, that video that I saw on YouTube can't be true because I'm not seeing it. I'm not seeing that news propagate to other news channels or news sources that, like, I might look at to decide for myself, is that real, or just another fake on the internet of somebody suggesting something. We
Yeah. And again, that stuff is extremely dangerous, for
we
sure.
have to be more diligent these days. We have to be more informed. We have to be willing to go look and take things with a grain of salt. Otherwise, you can get caught in those information vacuums, and all of a sudden, you believe everything that that channel says.
You have to be willing to question all of your assertions, really. I mean, when a lot of these things, something comes up, and if it seems really crazy, like, oh, that seems crazy, but I'm looking at a picture of it, so it must be true. That's where you need to be careful, because it could be a fake picture, and you're not, you could be sucked down that rabbit hole where you're already building that into your worldview, already acting as though that was real, and it's not. And by the time you find out, if you ever find out, because you probably won't, because if you're in your one silo, it's not going to get the retraction. Maybe it's just gonna, they're just gonna double down on it or go with something else, rather than actually own up to making a mistake, or making, or sending something out that was not
Yeah,
authentic.
and they seem more concerned on, like, reputation based content, where it's like, if I do a deep fake of Tom Cruise going on a rampage on a golf course, which is an actual deep fake out there that's incredible. It
Yeah,
really looks like
sure.
Tom Cruise, and he says some crazy shit and all of that. It's not Tom Cruise. And in those situations, I understand where they're coming from, where they don't necessarily want to see AI being used in a non-permission way to maybe smear someone's reputation. But at the same time, the technology, would you tell a Hollywood director that they can't use a fictitious character and generate, like, their movie with
Well,
a
that's
character
the
that's
question
not
right there,
even
though. Is
human? I wouldn't stop the
well, the character
technology.
that's not even human, that's different. But doing Tom Cruise, if they were to use Tom Cruise's likeness to put Tom Cruise in a movie that he didn't agree to, that's where they're talking about that. It would need, because that's being, your imagery being used against,
And
without your consent, essentially, to do
and
whatever.
those permissions and those situations have been here long before AI came along. So,
But AI made it super easy, though, is the
true.
thing.
The simplicity is part of their concern, but at the same time, the thing they're worried about, it's been there all along. It's about bad actors. It,
Yeah.
they're
Yeah.
more concerned about the bad actors, and if they choose to deal with the bad actors by overregulation, by taking the technology out of our hands completely, and that's how we're going to deal with the bad actors, that's not always the best approach. That stifles certain innovation. If we had done the same thing with the mobile phone market, we certainly wouldn't be where we are at now in the last 10, 15 years. The mobile market couldn't have developed as fast as it did if every time they turned around, regulations were stopping them from innovating.
At the same time, they had to respect certain regulations because there are certain, bandwidth gaps that they had to only, adhere to as far as what they could use for sending signals. I mean, all those kinds of things had to be worked out, right? Like, so there's certain areas that it's important to regulate because there's implications that spread far and wide, and there's other situations that don't need the regulation. But it's
They didn't
important.
seem to have a problem with Siri or Alexa just recording everything you say for the sake of function, and whether the bad actors in the back who have access to that data that AI does and use that data. Her example of facial recognition is a perfect one, because like facial recognition, hey, if you want to catch the murderer that's out there, or that criminal, you want that technology implemented in a
Exactly.
way
Yeah.
that, like, it's responsible and doing it to capture the murderer. But do you want your face recognized every time you're walking any old place? And do you want some bad actor out there to take advantage of that information and track you?
Well, to the first part, yes. To the second part, no. I mean, to the first part, yes. I have no problem with, as I'm walking somewhere, there's a, doorbell cameras, like whatever they are, ring
Yeah,
cameras,
we
like
just
on people's
we just
doorbells.
got one.
Yeah. And I mean, that's the thing. Is like, I'll be walking, I park on the street a lot because where I live, there's just street parking. So I park on the street. And as I'm walking down the street, you'll have doors talk to you. It's like, hello, you're being recorded by Ring, just because, you're walking past the door in a range where it activates the motion sensor. It's great for the people. Like, if they have packages on their porch, people aren't going to take the packages because they're on camera and all of that. But do I care if I'm on camera? No, because I'm going
Well,
about. I mean, if you want to track me going to my car and back, that's
I'll,
fine.
I'll
I
give
don't
you a
really
flip
care.
side to that. Like, some of those, especially in the early days, got hacked. So, like, people hacking doorbell cameras like that was a problem. And if you're wanting to rob somebody and you've got the Ring camera to show, like, when the package got delivered and now's the time to strike. So what if there's a camera there? You throw a mask on, you grab the package, you take off. It doesn't necessarily stop the crime.
Well, just neither do the locks on your door. I mean, that's the thing, or having an alarm. I mean, any of those things are just deterrents, so anybody who's determined to take your package, or determined to get in your house, or determined to break into your car, they're going to do it. Whether, if it sets off an alarm, or whether it's just the sound of the breaking glass or whatever, there's only so much you can defend against. Some bad actors are going to do some bad things. It's about trying to minimize the impact. Like when you were mentioning the hacking the doorbell cam, my first thought was, well, so what? So they can look out from my front door and see what the front yard looks like, and see
That
people
can come in
walking by.
handy
But
when you want to steal somebody's, like, packages.
when you mentioned the package, that's when you mentioned, like, seeing the package when it arrives and knowing the camera angle of where it is and all of that. That made sense as to why that information could be useful. But other than that, I was like, so it's very minimal value. If I don't order things to get delivered to my house, what are you going to get from that doorbell camera? Really nothing. you'd see the mailman stop by and, you want some of my bills? I mean, you can come steal my mail and that's a federal offense, and fine, then they'll come after you if you do anything with it, whatever, that's where it's, about understanding the impact of each of the things. How serious would it be if this was a problem, or if this gets hacked or whatever.
Yeah, and in that case, when I look at regulations like this, my bigger question is how are you going to deal with the bad actors and enforce something to deter them? Because you're never going to get rid of them. Like the mentality that like, oh, if we just don't do this, then there will not be bad actors. No, those bad actors will come in some other form, and how you deal with them while you continue development and don't stifle the industry in the process.
Right. And again, it's about the, how you use the tools and how you use the access. I've worked, in tech support, and I worked as a network administrator for a long time, where I had the keys to the castle. I had everybody's, I had the passwords to everybody's account. I could access any account, any file, anywhere, just because I'm the guy that you come to if you needed to get to the
And
thing that
it's
you
a
locked
good
yourself out.
thing that you're a responsible guy for that kind of access, because there are plenty of networks out there where the admins and the ones who have access to our sensitive data that's stored on these companies' computers, they don't know their employees as good as they should, or in some cases, like she mentioned, there's always loopholes, and those who sometimes have access to that facial recognition database, you have to build a good enough system that even if anybody on the inside was to compromise it like that, the other admins, you need a multi-tiered system where there's multiple people keeping an eye on things. You can't trust one source. That's a point of failure.
Sure. But also, as far as the facial recognition and as far as being tracked and all of that, like back on that, like, I don't care. Like, somebody was mentioning that to me and I'm like, well, I don't care if anybody knows where I am or where I'm going or any of that. And I didn't, stalkers
How
is one
would you
thing. It's not going to
feel?
be really
How would you
stalkers.
feel if you got accused of a crime because facial recognition recognized somebody who looks like you? And I'm not saying that it happens, but it's very possible. Like, facial recognition's
Yeah.
not perfect. If
Yeah.
you
And that's
got
where,
accused for doing something where it's not even you, but the facial recognition insists.
I look unique enough where I'd be very impressed if they found somebody who looked exactly like me at 6'6". So that's one thing. But the other thing is that even if it happened, that's where, if I were to take a lie detector, I would, I wasn't there. That's not me. And, of course, everybody says that. But how many of the people who say that could pass a lie detector because they actually aren't that person? They actually didn't do that thing. And as a matter of fact, at that time, I was actually over there with those
Well,
people.
yeah,
So, like, you would actually have
having an alibi,
all of that.
having an alibi helps, but
Well, again, it's just assuming, because if that's somebody else, if it wasn't me that's there, then I was doing something else at that moment. Even if whatever it was me sitting here, chatting with you over a video call. It's like, well, I was here, so that's somebody who knows where I was, and that I wasn't there. So that's whatever. That's getting to that point is just know what the importance of the information is,
and how
dangerous it is.
serious something like the police might take evidence like that. Like the
To me, it
facial
was more.
recognition might suggest this is the identity, but obviously, like a detective or a police would have to go beyond just that. To that alone would not be enough evidence for me to say that's definitely that person. It
But see,
helps to
you're
lead
immediately
you.
jumping to
It helps you lead you towards that.
You're immediately jumping to using it as evidence in a trial against somebody or stuff like that. I'm just talking about like the facial recognition in the first place. Like, to me, it's if I, had a heart attack somewhere, like somebody, reports me missing, they could actually go back and they see, well, here he was walking across the street, and they know that I, vanished somewhere between there and there's a camera down the road and I didn't make it that far. So they know where to find me. Like, I'm fine with that. And you can't just say, oh, they can turn that on when it's needed and it's off the rest of the time. It's more like it's on all the time. They could find everybody all the time, but there's no reason to be overly concerned about where a particular individual is unless there's a reason that they're after that particular individual, like they broke the law and they need to go find them, things like that. So I understand that. I don't mind if I'm being tracked all the time, because then if something goes wrong and I disappear, somebody kidnaps me, they could find me, or they could try to piece together what happened. and things like that. And again, I don't do things where, if you followed me, it's going to be a problem. Like I'm not hiding bodies here and I'm
Yeah,
not,
well,
stealing things
and
there.
you do understand, like for some people, it's not a matter of like, oh, I'm doing something wrong and I don't want to be monitored or I don't want to be facial. For some people, it's just like straight up privacy advocates. Some do not want their privacy intruded on, and unfortunately, when you walk out the door of your house, it is not your privacy; it's the world's privacy in your house.
You're on stage. Yeah. When you stepped outside. Yeah.
And going back to Alexa and Siri and things like that, when you're in your house and that kind of private data is being used by companies, you better trust the companies that are grabbing data in your private house, like Alexa will, like Siri will, any of
Like your
those,
TV will.
like your TV.
In a lot of cases, though, like what they had gone through with a lot of these things was that fact that all of these devices that are listening, like you said, listening to everything, it's not listening and recording everything like you mentioned, but it's listening to everything, and it's basically sending it through a filter to see what are the words that I'm listening for, like the one that you mentioned, and should it be acting on those
And
words, and if not, it doesn't send any of that data up into the cloud. It's all a local analysis. It'll send data about the information to the cloud, but it doesn't send the actual recordings or the
Well,
actual
that's
information
debatable.
to
See,
the cloud storage. That's what I'm saying. That
Amazon
that was
said
some of
that
the
Alexa wasn't listening in, even though it has to in order to function. And over the years, you've heard of actual criminal cases where they retrieved voice recordings from Amazon Alexa devices inside the home to tie up criminal cases. So
and in some cases that can be things that are actually, there are certain things that would trigger a response like that. Like I'm not going to say them on here, but like certain things that would relate to, let's say, whether it's an attack on somewhere or whether it's a plot against somebody or whatever, things like that. If there are specific words that are used, like you said, in the commission of a crime, and that's something that is listened in
how
on and heard by that thing, it might be triggered to automatically record
how
that
do
and
you
be able
teach
to use
the AI to listen in context to a trigger word when you can't even teach
it. Sure.
humans to understand context? If we
Well,
can't get
they already did.
humans to understand context, how are we going to program an AI to do it?
Well, they already did, because it already responds to its name and it already knows what to do after, when you start building a rapport with one of those AIs, like whether it's Alexa or Siri or whoever, once you start developing, you say the name, you say what you want, and it happens, right? I mean, it's already built to understand that stuff. It's listening all the time. It's ignoring everything else. Everything else is going through the same filter. It's everything that you say is basically going through did he just say my name? No. Did he just say my name? No. Did he just say my name? Like every single word. So it's like having a dog there waiting to hear its name called,
Well,
but it won't do anything. It won't act on
did he
anything unless it
did he
hears
just
those
say the
trigger words.
word kill? And if
That's the
so,
question.
was he talking about killing someone, or was he talking about killing in this game, or I killed this song?
And that's exactly right. And that's why it doesn't automatically report you and send police officers to your house just because of that. But like you said, it's something where in the investigation of the crime, they were able to go back and they discovered that there was a device like that in the
Once
house, and maybe it had something in
once
there.
there's suspicion, you start to see how they might utilize some of that data that's not meant for anything other than to perform a function. But it's the same way as that court case in Florida, the mother that Casey Anthony. They brought in Google search terms based off of the computer in the home and the computer at the mother's work, and they utilized Google data and search terms that were going on from those machines and correlated that this mother was not at home when she did this search term. She was at work, which affected like some of the decisions as to whether there was guilt here or not. And how they use this data, how the companies use the data, how they protect that data, obviously whether they share it with the authorities when the authorities ask, because in those cases, if there's reason for suspicion and the authorities go and say, hey, Google, we need this information to determine someone's guilt, uh, Google has shown they comply with it. Amazon has shown they'll comply with those requests.
And again, you're talking about everything that's related to crimes being committed or being investigated, whether it's a crime or whether someone is cleared of a crime, which again, that's everything should be, open for that kind of a thing. Again,
Well,
as a network administrator, if somebody came to me and said, we need to look at some of the files that are locked for here because we're investigating some crime, of course, I would be able to go do that and get to the files and open them and produce them as evidence. I mean, that's part of what production would
And
be
I'm
about.
all for them utilizing this in crime investigations. My only concern, just like it always is if it gets misinterpreted, misused.
But a lot of people, they're trying to argue against having any kind of regulations, saying, oh, well, in these cases, it could be problematic. But there's so many cases where not having regulations is already problematic. That is why they're trying to make regulations and make the regulations better in the first place. And I can certainly see reasons for regulations and building a framework and a structure and trying to extrapolate where this field is going to be. Like we said, in even 5 years is almost impossible. So we don't even know what kinds of rules are going to have to be changed between now and then. We might have to already have citizenship for robots by then. I mean, we really don't know. We really don't know.
So how do you feel that as far as the EU's approach there? Do you think they're on the right track? A little bit of food for thought that might lead to a form of a balance of regulation?
Yeah, I like the fact that they're thinking about it in the first place. I like the fact that they're thinking about it together. I like the fact that they're working towards something. And it doesn't seem like it's draconian or overly problematic. And again, I'm all for freedom in a lot of the same ways that you are all for freedom. And in a lot of ways, it's just that, I've had people have I've had the debate with people about the whole, they're tracking you through the doorbell cameras and all that. And I thought it was such a silly debate, like in the time that I had it previously. Because I'm like, why do I care about anybody knowing where I am? I'm like, I really, really don't care.
I'm generally passive. Like
the only case I care when I disappear.
I'm generally passive like that too. I don't worry so much about like I generally feel like you can be watched through everything if they really want to watch you, if you got the wrong radars on you, like any of this technology could be a concern. But at the same time, I'm generally like passive when it comes to worrying about anything I'm doing. If you're not doing anything wrong, it's pretty easy to be that way.
I mean, you're one of the only people I know who doesn't have a cell phone literally attached to them at all times.
But I have 9 cell phones in this room.
No, I know. But what I'm saying is, like, a lot of the people, the same person who was having this conversation with me about being tracked by the cameras, literally never has his phone not on him. So it's like you're worried about being tracked, and you literally purposely carry around a device that is purposely tracking you by satellite at all times, knows exactly where you are, and can always find you at any time. And if law enforcement was looking for you, they can turn on that microphone in your phone at any time to track if they believe a crime is being committed. So you're already doing all the work for them. Why are you trying to make it harder for them to see what's going on in the doorbell camera or whatever? I'm like, it's so disconnected from the reality of the situation that you're, if they want to know where you are, they can find you, and you're making it very easy for them on purpose.
Don't commit a crime.
Don't commit a crime.
Yeah, Glenn went McGruff on us.
You got to go McGruff.
But that was an awesome explanation on the EU Act, and I love how she showed the different parts she was talking about. Very well put together. Letitia.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, AI coffee break with Letitia. At
Very cool.
AI coffee break. Gonna be checking her out for some of my AI news. I like hearing what's going on across the pond.
Indeed. And it's good stuff. And again, the world has gotten so much smaller where everything happening there still does, it more directly affects even what's happening here at the same time, where in the past, two separate worlds, things, news data would travel, but now it's just so instantaneous and so everywhere that anything anywhere can affect everything.
Well, and you have to be quicker on your feet as you get all that information and sort out the good information from the bad.
Yeah, absolutely. And which things actually are going to be, because some things they start up and fail, but things like AI, I mean, this has been something that's been building momentum, and it's not just one specific thing. It's just, there's a whole groundswell around it and, about the process. And I think it's very cool. And the fact that it's, people have been interacting with the models so much in the past couple of years and been part of that process. It's like the beta testers, right?
Yeah.
Like the alpha testers, working on the systems before it's really, really out there. So we've had got in on the ground floor and we've been interacting with these. Like we said, we talked about it 4 years ago on our show. We've talked about it, between now and then. There's more coming, and we'll get to others, in the future as well, because it's going to be a lot of change.
It's going to be an AI revolution, which is perfect because that's the channel that we're going to be looking at a little bit of hardware here. And this is where I do feel like in order to get through this final frontier with the AI, the hardware aspect of it is the right now the important piece that needs to get developed. And you're starting to really see them go after the hardware side of things.
And I'm seeing a lot more of them in my feed lately because of the fact that I'm always watching, videos on this type of stuff. Like we were talking about how our feed is getting such good, good content for us. The AI stuff is stuff that I look up a lot. So I get a lot of the content like that.
Yeah.
As
Well, I've been looking at like AI incorporated into GPUs, AI based off of the CPUs and where in the hardware scheme of things. It's possible in the next 5 years we'll be putting another card in right along with our GPUs just for the AI work.
Sure.
If it keeps going the
Or-
trend that it's going.
I was even thinking just, doubling up kind of on the video card itself, because that way, it could be splitting where it's doing half of its, using half of its processing, half of its power for the video, for stuff like video games, and the other half
in
for
the
the
case
AI
of
stuff.
NVIDIA, that's some of the approach that's been going on is like some of the chips that are in the GPU that really aren't doing that much are starting to be offloaded to do some AI functions because they're well designed for them.
Yeah, like hyperthreading, trying to split the problem into multiple streams or multiple whatever, so that you can split it into different processors, different areas, and then have the results recombined.
So this one's going to be coming from at Air Evolution X, the AI revolution, the ultimate AI media channel for the greatest advancements in artificial intelligence. And that's what we're looking at tonight.
Today's the day.
And this one's again another AI news channel. This one has a couple of different topics that he goes through, but the GPT-5 definitely making big noise over on YouTube, and what Meta's doing on the AI side, definitely they're busy at work with it, and I guess they call it Llama. It's like Llama Damas's engine.
Large language model. So you get that double L and the M there, and you call it Llama.
And the one that really interested me on this video that I want to see more is what Intel's doing on the hardware side, because you can't ignore Intel. They are a big reason why we are where we are at with computers these days. So never discount their impact.
Exactly.
And I'm curious what he's going to talk about with Google Vids and more, because like AI over on the Google side and YouTube, lots been going on there. And like on YouTube, one thing in the last couple of months is they've added new fields when you're uploading your content. They've added new questions. It's like the ones where they ask, is there any children in the video? Is there any in-ad advertising? They've added a required question asking if there's any artificial pictures, content, anything that's possibly AI generated that might be in the video. And hopefully they stick to just the AI, because I mean, if they really wanted to be anal, they could have been asking this about Photoshop, like in the last 25 years. We didn't need AI to make image manipulation. It just happens to make it easy and fast.
Well, that's part of it actually, is as you were mentioning with the forensic trail, let's say on Photoshop or on an image. If you had an image and it was manipulated, somebody would be able to look at that image and tell you how it was manipulated.
Yes, a digital forensics expert can tell you if there's a pixel in that picture that did not come from the camera.
But with AI, that's a brand new image. So there would be none of that evidence there. So that's where AI does open a new door there, where you don't have that same level of
But
granularity,
again,
I guess, being able to get
the
forensic to
AI
it.
is stamping that content with its stamp. So a forensics expert would know right away that this media was generated by AI because the AI stamps it. There is
And again,
there is a fingerprint.
forensically, yes, but that's where again the damage could already be done. So if it's that's where this stuff is more important in like a reputational, as
Yeah.
you mentioned, like a reputational harm way, is where that harm is already out there, and it's tough to put that genie back in the bottle. Say, oh, that's a fake image of whoever doing whatever, rather than everybody's already sent them out of the community, and whatever. There's all kinds of things that have already happened to that person based on the fact that people thought that image was real. There's that kind of a problem.
Well,
Where
and,
you get into with
hopefully with their regulations and how they choose to enforce things, they'll deter people from doing things like that by imposing severe penalties. Like if you don't want people to do this kind of stuff, you got to kind of nip it in the bud early in the technology and get people to understand that like faking somebody and making them look bad on social media and destroying their reputation that way has the same consequences as it would be if you had done it in the old days and put out a news story or reported them to the police when they didn't commit a crime. Somebody has to be held accountable for those. It's like it's like those who went and swatted somebody. Like
sure,
there's going to be penalties for people.
People can get killed that way.
Yes,
though, yeah.
Especially if something does happen in bad like that, the penalties get more and more severe.
Yeah.
But
Indeed.
deterrence is part of the important thing we have to, when it comes to like enforcing any of these potential breaking of the laws in the AI world.
Yep. It is a revolution.
The channel says it right. Let's see what's about to come up with GPT-5, Llama, Gaudi, and Google Vids.
And more.
OpenAI and Meta are on the verge of introducing new artificial intelligence technologies that can think and make plans, a major step toward creating machines with human-like intelligence. The people in charge at OpenAI and Meta have shared that they're getting their new AI systems ready to go. Meta is planning to introduce Llama 3 soon, and OpenAI, with support from Microsoft, says its new model, probably named GPT-5, is also on its way shortly. Joelle Pineau from Meta and Brad Lightcap from OpenAI have both talked about their goals to not just make AI that can chat, but AI that can really think through problems, make plans, and remember things. Up until now, AI has been really good at doing quick one-time jobs, but it hasn't been great at handling more complicated tasks or thinking in a broad way, but that's starting to change with these new updates. There's a big race in the tech world to make AI that can do a lot of different things very well, including writing text, making pictures, coding, or creating videos that look like they were made by a person. And with every new development, it seems like this kind of super smart AI is getting closer to reality. Having AI that can reason and plan is a key step toward making AI that's as smart as a human. This means that soon, chatbots or digital helpers might be able to handle a bunch of tasks that are connected or think ahead about what might happen because of something they do. At a tech event in London, Jan LeCun from Meta said that right now, AI doesn't really think ahead or plan out its words carefully, which is why it sometimes makes silly mistakes. But they're working on giving AI the ability to look at different possible answers, figure out a plan of action, and understand the outcomes of what it decides to do. LeCun talked about making AI agents that could do things like plan a whole trip for you from your office to a different city, including getting you to the airport. And Meta has big plans to put their new AI into apps like WhatsApp and into smart glasses they've made with Ray-Ban. OpenAI's Brad Lightcap also hinted that there's more news coming about GPT-5 and that they're looking to make AI that can handle longer and more complex tasks by getting better at thinking things through. At the same event, Chris Cox from Meta mentioned how the cameras in their smart glasses could help you fix things like a broken coffee machine by using AI to tell you what to do. In the end, LeCun thinks that we'll be talking to these AI helpers all the time, and that they'll play a big role in our digital lives. At the same time, Intel is stepping up its game in the AI hardware arena, claiming its new technology is significantly ahead of NVIDIA, a major player in the field. The head of Intel announced their goal to become the second biggest AI systems producer in the world by the end of this decade. Intel introduced its Gaudi 3 AI accelerator at a big event called Intel Vision 2024, held in Phoenix. This new tech is designed to be a powerhouse for training the kind of AI models that make things like ChatGPT possible. Compared to what came before it, the Gaudi 2, this new version has a lot more computing power, can handle more data at once, and can connect to networks faster. This means it can help improve how fast and efficiently AI models can learn and make decisions, even for AIs that work with both words and pictures or sounds. The big news is that Intel's Gaudi 3 is expected to be 50% faster at teaching these smart AI models than NVIDIA's top $40,000 chip, and it can make decisions 30% faster than another one of NVIDIA's chips. Intel is also keeping an eye on NVIDIA's latest chip to see how it compares. Intel's CEO, Pat Gelsinger, made a big statement about how important innovation and AI are becoming for every kind of business, and how Intel's new tech is meant to help bring AI to all sorts of places, from personal computers to big data centers. One of the perks of the Gaudi 3 is that it doesn't need as many units to work with big AI models, which could make things cheaper for companies running large data centers. Intel has also been in the news for getting a big chunk of government money to help expand its chip-making operations in the US, with plans to create a huge site for making AI chips in Ohio. Gelsinger talked about this ambition at the Intel Vision event, emphasizing their commitment to growing in the AI field. Intel is trying to fill a gap in the market, especially at a time when there's a big demand for NVIDIA's chips. Gelsinger boasted about the positive feedback they've been getting for the Gaudi 3 from customers and partners. Some big names like Bosch, Landing AI, and Seeker are already using Intel's Gaudi technology, and soon more companies will be able to get their hands on it, as it's set to be released to manufacturers in the next few months and will become more widely available after that. In his conversations with the press, Gelsinger talked up Intel's plans for the future, including getting the Gaudi 3 rolling out soon, as well as another exciting chip they're working on. He was confident in Gaudi 3's superior performance and cost effectiveness compared to NVIDIA's offerings, although specific pricing wasn't discussed. Intel's approach to competing with NVIDIA isn't just about who has the best performance. It's also about cost, how easy it is to get the technology, and how it helps businesses access and use data. According to Christoph Schell, Intel's chief commercial officer, Intel checks all these boxes, positioning itself well ahead of NVIDIA in the race. All right, now Google is spicing up its workspace business tools with some smart AI features, adding cool new abilities to what you already get, and also introducing some extra services. Google plans to enrich existing workspace accounts with new capabilities and introduce paid add-ons for an extra $10 per user per month. In addition, Google Meet, the video conferencing app, is set to receive its own add-on. This will include features such as auto-translation and an automatic note-taking service, enabling participants to fully engage in conversations without the distraction of taking notes. Announced at a recent Google Cloud event, these updates are part of Google's push to stay at the forefront of business software technology. With Google's business software being among the most widely used in workplaces worldwide, these enhancements are likely to be well received. One of the standout new tools is Google Vids, a video editing app joining the Google Workspace lineup. Google Vids aims to simplify video creation and editing for businesses, covering everything from product pitches to social media content, and even workplace safety training videos. This tool promises seamless integration with other workspace apps like Docs and Slides, offering features like storyboard generation and the use of stock footage to create a customizable first draft. Slated for release in June 2024, Google Vids will be available within Workspace without requiring a paid add-on. Google is also introducing a new AI security add-on for Workspace subscriptions, priced at $10 per user per month. This enhanced security feature is designed to significantly improve Gmail's spam detection capabilities, processing a vast amount of user-reported spam each day. Additionally, it will offer tools to help IT teams automatically manage sensitive files on Google Drive, promising better protection and management of business data. The integration of AI doesn't stop with Workspace. Google Meet and Chat are also getting an AI boost. The Gemini-powered AI meetings and messaging add-on, also costing $10 per user per month, will be available for most Workspace plans. It features a Take Notes for Me option for automatic note-taking during meetings, as well as a Translate for Me function capable of translating 69 different languages, addressing the common challenge of language barriers in global business environments. These AI-powered enhancements are expected to roll out to Google Chat as well in 2024, further solidifying Google's commitment to improving productivity and communication through AI technology. All right, don't forget to hit that subscribe button for more updates. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll catch you in the next one.
Wow, Google might actually entice me to use workspaces with some of those upgrades.
Nice. Yeah, and the real-time translation is something that I've been waiting for AI to get up to speed on, because that is something that is going to be huge to enable people to communicate more directly.
Yeah,
Sort of like
actually, when
almost
they
like the
mentioned it,
universal translator. Mhm.
when they mentioned it, Zoom just added that feature in the last couple of updates, and Ange has been testing it. She actually did a test last night and tried to like translate us into a couple of languages. It's still a little clunky on the Zoom side,
Exactly.
but I am
I'm glad to see
very
it being tried. I'm glad to see it being
well,
tried even. Yeah, yeah.
and I expect better results out of Google, considering their translator is like the de facto standard for translating on the internet.
Mhm.
They might get it right. So that's a good upgrade to add there with Workspace, and the AI like cleaning up emails and things like that. Man, I wish I had that a long time ago.
Yeah, exactly. But we had to wait for enabling technology to get here.
Yeah, but the Intel chip definitely, that new building they're doing in Ohio to do chips. It's going to
Yeah, yeah.
take a little while because it's not like you can build a chip manufacturing building overnight. But
Mhm.
uh, by the end of this decade, I could see Intel regaining their their throne against Nvidia on this.
Mhm.
They're never going to beat them on the GPU side and the graphics side. So smart for Intel to realize like this is a gap that Nvidia's kind of been walking on their own, dominating,
Mhm.
and this is where Intel needs to step up.
Yeah. And again, it's really hard to say where we'll be in just a couple of years. So like by the time they finish building the plant, we may have totally different needs than we had right now for the whole industry, because we may have leapfrogged past what was there and we're already building robots out of, gel or something. It's like, who knows?
We might be fighting Terminators by then.
Yeah, exactly. Nothing is over.
So that was some great news from at AI Revolution X.
Mhm.
And like I mentioned with the other AI channel that we were looking at and the one we're going to be looking at the end, these channels are great resources, accurate information, constantly keeping an eye on the industry. These are good channels if you want to keep up with AI and you only got a little bit of time.
Mhm.
This is one of the go-to channels for me.
The AI revolution.
Yes. And now AI music is here. And I had to check out this platform when I was looking through AI music software.
Mhm.
None of them made as much noise as Suno. And I'm not familiar with it, but as I was looking through everything, I was like, I got to get familiar with this. There's too many people talking about it to ignore.
Mhm. Very cool.
And at Flipped Classroom Tutorials, like I said, came and saved the day with one that actually does give a good explanation of Suno and what it is, what it does. Most of the other videos that I was finding were, just showing examples and somebody making a song with it, but not getting into the nuts and bolts of what this software is.
Sure. Very cool.
So at Flip Classroom Tutorials, making educational technology easy for you. You go, boy. That's part of our mission too.
That's right. Suno AI in action.
is here. Listen to this.
Turning the classroom around it, bringing innovation. They never back down with their harder videos. They're making it clear that learning can be fun, no need to fear.
And Suno AI is one of the best. So let's dive onto the computer and have a look at how you can make your own AI-generated music. Here in my browser, I'm going to navigate to suno.com. Now, the first thing you'll want to do is have a look at the website and explore some of the music that is available on their website. So for example, here you can see some of the trending songs. I'm going to scroll down. One example is the cat song. Let's have a look at it. Okay, great first example, but can it do different styles? Well, let's scroll down a little bit further and let's find out if it can do other styles as well. Here we've got some uplifting epic pop. Okay, maybe we are looking for something a little bit more deeper. Let's have some lo-fi Japanese funk. So as you can see, it's an incredibly versatile platform. One of my favorites so far of what I've seen on the trending page is this one, which is the 50 decimal places of pi.
World's first 50 decimal places of pi. It's very hard to fully memorize. If you forget, no need to apologize.
So as you can see, it all comes with the lyrics, and those were also generated.
25, 3.1415926535897932384626433. And finally, these are the last 25. 832795502.
So just an example of what's available and what can be generated with Suno. Now, you will agree, this is already incredible. So let's go ahead and make our own Suno AI generated music. We're going to go to Create and sign up with our account. So I'm going to use my Google account to log into this one. Just going to click on Google, going to agree to all the terms of service, and then I'm going to generate some music. So here you can see we have two modes. We have the simple interface. That is what you see here, where we can describe our song, ask for an instrumental or not. And of course, we're using version 3, the latest version of Suno. That's what you've been hearing. That's where that really good quality comes from. Or we can go into custom mode. And in custom mode, we can paste our own lyrics. We can also, again, select that we would like an instrumental. And we can choose the style of music. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the simple mode, and I'm going to describe the song. I want a lo-fi house song about the animal classifications. Include mammals, fish, birds, reptiles, amphibians, and some of their characteristics. And there we go. Now, I'm just going to fix some of these typos in my text. I know I'm terrible at spelling. So here we can go. It's not boards, it's birds. Let's fix that. Now, we do not need an instrumental for this because we do want AI to generate those lyrics as well. And we're going to use version 3. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to click on Create. And Suno will start generating both the lyrics of the song as well as the music. Now, I did ask for a house song, so it's going to probably be some lo-fi house music, but you could choose any genre you want. So we'll do a different genre later. So let's see what Suno is generating. Okay, so here you can see we have 2 songs generated. It says house electronic. Let's listen to what Suno has generated for us. We're going to press play. Great first song. Let's listen to the second generated song.
Mammals on the dance floor, moving with style from the big old fence to the fairy smile. They got fur, they got milk, they're warm-blooded too. Mammals in the house crew, moving all night through. Fish in the rhythm, swimming with grace. From the colorful bed of fish to the sharks and the chase, gills and scales.
Okay, so let's say that we now want to use this in one of our creative projects or in class. Well, what we can do now is here on these three dots, we can either reuse this prompt, rename the song, or download it. Here you can download the audio track or a video track. I'm going to download the audio. Click on download, and that audio file will automatically be downloaded. There it is, and I can now use it in any creative project I would like. In addition to that, we can also make this track public, or we can share it. We can copy that link, and then when other people click on the link, they enter the Suno interface and they can listen to this song. Now let's play around with some different genres. So here I'm going to just change this. I'm going to say a blues song about the noise a frog makes at night. There we go. And we're going to click on create. So this is a very general description. I want it to be about frogs, the noise they make, and I want it to be blues. Now, I did not specify what type of blues music I'm looking for. So let's see what Suno comes up with. Okay, we have the midnight croak and another midnight croak. We have a slow tempo, soulful blues. So let's have a listen. I'm going to click on this.
Well, it's midnight in the swamp. The air is thick and black. I'm sitting on my porch, just trying to relax. There's a sound that's haunting me, driving me insane. It's the croaking of that frog, playing his sorrowful refrain. I gotta tell you, folks, it's a lonesome kind of tune. Hear it every night underneath the silvery moon.
Okay, excellent. Let's listen to the second song.
Well, it's midnight in the swamp. The air's thick and black. I'm sitting on my porch, just trying to relax. But there's a sound that's haunting me, driving me insane. It's the croaking of that frog playing his song refrain. I gotta tell you, folks, it's a lonesome kind of tune.
Brilliant. Now let's say that I want to turn this into a full song. Well, you can do that as well. Now you will need credits for this. Now we're going to click on the song. This opens up the song page. You can see the song page has the lyrics, it has everything, but it stops here at the end. Now, if I wanted to extend this song, I could do that. I can click on the three dots here. And what I can do is I can click on extend, which will then extend this song. And that's Suno AI, an amazing generative AI platform to create music that you can then use in all your projects. I hope you found this helpful. If you did, make sure to subscribe to the channel. I also want to say a quick thank you to all the channel members. Thank you for making the creation of this content possible. You are helping us create new content each and every week. Now, if you would like to become a channel member as well, you can scroll down and find that join button at the bottom. In the meantime, thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next one.
Awesome.
Whoa, that was pretty impressive and great tutorial.
Yeah. I mean, writing a song like that fast. I mean, I know blues is pretty simple and all that, but that sounded very convincing for a very, very simple prompt. Just, hey, make a blues song like this about a frog and the sound they make at night. Boom. And
Well,
like,
and the AI has a scary understanding of like frogs and their emotions.
Sure, exactly. Very interesting. Because I mean,
Plus,
that would be a great place to start for a lot of songs. You know, even if you're not going to use that exact structure or whatever, you can get some ideas from what the AI comes up with there.
I like the one he started with, an AI that can help me understand pi. It's a useful AI.
That was a good idea for a song, sure. First 25 digits of pi. Nice.
But that I can see now why that's one of the favorites out there, especially for the musicians who, or for content creators that are looking for, song generation that's specific to something that they might be looking for in their video. Um, that's an easy entry.
Yeah, like you said, somebody, if they are not an instrumentalist, or even they're not a singer, or they're just not musical, but what they wish they were, but they see themselves, they can describe what they want to hear. The better you can describe it, the better you are with whispering, talking to the AI, the better results you can get from it. And so somebody who has literally no musical experience at all could make something very good just by describing it clearly enough to an AI like that.
Yeah, or could get what they're looking for without having to describe it to a musician, convince them to go make it.
Exactly. And that fast. And if you didn't like that one, you just make another one just as fast. And I like that one even better. Like that first blues song, that was a little slow for my taste, but still very impressive. But then that second one, I was like, oh, now we're talking.
Well, and the thing that I liked the most about that, what I'd mentioned earlier, was the way it approached the lyrics, the chorus, the verses. It actually notates them in a way that I understand. Like that's what I've been wanting to see out of like lyric generation and musical AI, is something that makes sense to me. And with lyrics, that's how I like to see the lyrics.
Yeah, exactly. So very cool for sure.
Yes, that is definitely. I mean, I know there's some competitors, but like that is definitely well settled in music software, worth checking out.
Indeed.
So now we're going to shift to video, and this one is just as impressive. When it comes to Hollywood, Hollywood definitely has its eye on certain AI platforms where like they are producing the Hollywood look and feel that, you know, they're definitely going to use. And this one really got me excited when I saw some of the screenshots of it in action. Um, the ability to really not just storyboard, but to actually generate different camera angles, scene views that are consistent for what you might need as you're producing a movie, or in a lot of our cases, music videos. Like this would be one that I would definitely try if I wanted to put together a music video.
Nice. And that would be a fun project too.
Oh, absolutely. And this isn't a new channel. We've come across theoretically media a couple times throughout our journeys, and he got my attention with this video AI like right off the bat. I was like, I gotta include this one to counter the music AI.
Definitely. They complement each other, sure.
Yeah, and it's at Theoretically Media over on YouTube. He's your navigator into the fusion of artistry. Yes, you drive, or I'll drive, you navigate. Reimagining reality, exploring the artistic frontier with AIs. That's a good theme on this channel.
And it fits right for AI.
Yeah, and what he's going to be talking about here, the specific software is by LTX Studio by Lightrix, and like I said, I've looked at a couple of different video AI platforms, and they've all been missing things for me that are important, and this one looks like it fills in a lot of the gaps.
Nice. We'll have to check it out and see what we got.
Yeah, let's see what tricks Lightrix has.
We have a new AI video platform. This one was just announced today, and it does a lot. Honestly, like all the things. Trust me, you're gonna wanna check this one out because we haven't seen anything like it yet. We've also got some big updates to Pika and Gen 2. Plus, Google has a text-to 2D game generator, which, on its own is, I guess, kind of cool, but it's really when you dig in that you see the ramifications of what this really does. Okay, lots to cover. Let's dive in. Kicking off, we have LTX Studio by Lightricks. This is something that I've been predicting for a while, a holistic platform that solves a lot of the challenges that we face when we're making longer form AI film or video, kind of bringing all of the external requirements in under one roof. As a quick FYI, I did get early access to LTX Studio as a partner through Lightricks. Stay tuned because I've got a way for you guys to get early access as well. See, I'm always looking out for you. But I think as we go through this video, you'll see exactly why I'm excited about it. And listen, I know, Sora, we'll talk about that in a minute, but for now, let's step through this video. The video kicks off with some text to video examples. Everything looks really good here. I did notice that in this shot, the prompt calls out track in toward villain. Yes, there is camera controls in LTX Studio. We'll talk about that more in just a minute. From there, it moves into this shot to shot panel where, we get 3 shots when we prompt futuristic space drama. But here is where things get pretty interesting. It continues generating and we end up with 12 shots. Now, what's interesting is that these are all editable as well, as seen in the next example where they change the prompt out to New York City courtroom drama. And yeah, everything repopulates. Now, what's interesting is that if you actually scrub through this, you'll see that our vaguely cyberpunkian city here actually becomes an East Coast city. And, our first shot, kind of that back angle of the character turns into, is that, I guess, like John Doe from Seven? I don't know. I kind of want to see this movie now. Now, here is the really cool part, because as you can see here, we now have timelines for music, dialogue, and sound effects. And these all happen on platform. So there's no need to generate externally and bring them in. This is all one-stop shopping. It's a quick FYI, this is actually not the UI. This is a sizzle reel that tends to happen. I do have a look at the actual UI coming up in just a minute. We next get a shot of video inpainting with this shot of like bootleg Josh Hartnett and the green car in the background, where obviously via text prompt, we have now changed the green car to a red car. Storyboarding is another feature that I think is super cool. You can basically get a bird's eye view of your entire film, and you can actually even swap shots around. And if you need to insert shots, you can do so as well, which is obviously hugely valuable when you're iterating and polishing your film. If you're wondering about timing of your shots, yeah, you can do that as well. We'll take a look at that in 1 second. Here we've got a bit on casting. It's basically video in painting, but the important thing to stress here is that you're getting consistent characters. We can swap around lighting. We can generate some solid title cards for our film. Everything here looks spelled correctly. So really this just comes down to user input, meaning all of my titles are going to be misspelled. We have camera movement controls as well. As you can see, we have controls for horizontal, vertical, our pan, our roll, and our zoom. And LTX Studio also has auto editing. This is likely to time all of the dialogue, sound effects, and music. Just as a quick FYI, the UI that we saw in the sizzle reel is not what LTX Studio actually looks like. It's fairly common for a launch video to prioritize, obviously, these are the features that are available, not necessarily like this is what the platform looks like. But they did send this over to me so that I could show you what the platform actually looks like right now. To be honest, I actually prefer this over sort of a flashy iPad type look. As the video closes out, it does mention script, which wasn't highlighted in the sizzle reel. But yes, LTX Studio can, write and generate an entire storyline in script for you. But importantly, it doesn't have to. You can still write your own storyline. That's something that's kind of important to me. Okay, now for the elephant in the room, Sora. Yes, Sora is amazing, but A, we don't have it yet, and B, this is doing something different. Sora generates individual shots, whereas this is a platform where you can create full stories. In my last video, I talked to Nico from Corridor, who had some really great advice for anyone that wanted to make an AI film or really do anything creative.
Always be creating. It's not about one idea, it's not about one product, AI or whatever. It doesn't matter. You need to always be making stuff. Art is not about I made one movie, I'm good. It's about I like to make movies, so I make movies every day.
So don't wait for the tools. Use the ones that are available to you and make awesome stuff. To which you are probably wondering, when does LTX Studio actually release? Well, I've got good news, not too long away, end of March. But I've also got some good news. You can sign up for early access if you use the link down below. Moving on, Pika have updated their platform with a new feature that allows you to add lip sync to your output videos. Audio generations are limited to about 3 to 4 seconds, although there is kind of a workaround that I'll show you in just 1 second. So let's give lip syncing a shot. We're going to take our old friend Daniela Van Den Onk dressed as a pirate, we haven't seen her in a while, and drop her into the prompt box. From here, you can just hit this lip sync button, and that will provide you with a number of different drop-down voices that you can try out. So we're gonna try out Demi. We type in some text, and before you know it, we got Daniela speaking.
Please stop using me in your videos. It's getting silly.
In general, I kind of find the AI voices to be, well, very AI voice sounding, but luckily you can actually add in your own MP3 files as well, and it will lip sync to that. So let's give that a shot. So taking some audio of the real Daniela Van Den Onk and popping it in. Take a listen to that real quick.
Staat er in één keer een rondje begon. Ja, moet ik nou weten dat er een rotonde is?
She's Dutch. I have no idea what she was saying there. I will say that it can also get a bit finicky depending on the face detection. For example, with this astronaut here, well, I'll just play it.
I wasn't originally going to get a brain transplant, but then I changed my mind. It cracked me up.
So while I did get a whopping 6 seconds out of it, obviously the face was kind of paralyzed, by the way. 2 points to the spaceman for the dad joke. But I did get a pretty good Indiana Jones.
X never, ever marks the spot.
So I will say it's all definitely a work in progress, but it is progress in the right direction. Here's a couple of quick examples. Dave Valuva posted this one up.
Show me the money!
And Pika themselves posted this up, which kind of looks like a young John Turturro in a live-action Ratatouille remake.
Omelette du fromage.
That is a deep-cut Dexter's Laboratory reference. One idea in terms of extending out your lip sync audio is that you could potentially run one generation and then just slide this whole thing over and then run a second generation and then kind of splice them together in some editing software afterwards. Not gonna lie, might be a bit of a pain, but it is a potential workaround, at least for now. All in all, keep up the great work, Pika. Moving on, not to be outdone, Runway have introduced a new quality of life feature to their motion brush. Mostly what this allows for is to auto-select certain areas of your image so that you can have control over them. It is definitely a quality of life thing. It just makes things a lot faster. You can always erase sections as well. This is all demonstrated by Rich Klein AI. Now, as soon as I saw that, I figured that this would make a pretty good excuse to try out the dolly zoom shot from Jaws, the Zolly shot, if you will. Well, it was also used in Vertigo. The way this effect was achieved in camera is that the camera itself would dolly in on Roy Scheider, while at the same time they would be zooming out on the lens. So it creates that sort of weird parallaxing Vertigo-ish effect. So taking a screenshot and bringing it into the motion brush module, as you can see, we can just sort of, grab selections and just click, and those sections are now part of our brush one. From there, I just took brush one and cranked the proximity up. Meanwhile, I just selected the entire background and cranked the proximity in the opposite direction. Running that got us this, which actually is not that bad. I mean, yes, it is weird and warpy and all of that, but I mean, it's also one of the most iconic film shots of all time. So you are judging at a very high bar. Still, that is a cinematic technique that, does work in Runway, so you can feel free to bring that into your own AI films. In terms of a more practical use case for this new tool, Nicholas Newbert posted up a speed run of him working with it. You can see him here quickly selecting various tools using proximity, ambience, the horizontal and vertical, as well as camera movement on it. And then when he generates, this looks very, very good. Rounding out in Runway news, I don't know if you guys caught this, but someone asked Cristobal Valenzuela, the CEO of Runway, if Runway's outputs would look as good as Sora's anytime soon. And his response was, better. So whether that was bravado or if we actually will be seeing like Sora level outputs coming out of Runway in the next couple of months, I don't know. It's all just very exciting. A lot of stuff is moving very quickly, and this couldn't be a better time to be sharpening your skills with AI video. Rounding out, Google released Genie, which is a text to 2D game generator. So game-wise, it is very much in the old school NES platformer style. You are not going to be text prompting for Half-Life 3 here. But here is what's kind of cool about it, is that Genie was actually trained unsupervised on 200,000 hours of publicly available video game footage, and it can generate games either off of text or via an image. The games are obviously very simple and apparently only running at 1 frame a second, so it's not like it would be a very enjoyable experience to play anyways, but the idea behind it is pretty remarkable in that what Genie's doing is actually world creating. Again, Google being Google, I don't think that we'll ever get a chance to play with Genie, but I think the important part here is the underlying research, which I think will appear in some way in the future. Oh, and if you did happen to miss the last video I did where I gave a talk about AI to Hollywood, I do invite you to check that out. That video was a lot of fun. It's coming up next. I thank you for watching. My name is Tim.
Oh, Tim rocks with the teasers. I want to try every one of those.
Me, I'm all in on the video game one. That's where I'm starting.
Yeah. Make a super Ange world.
Yeah. Make anything. I mean, for any a music video, you could just make a custom 2D game scroller and use it as background for any video. I mean, that's awesome.
Well, and it goes to show you just how like developed it's become, where you can make like those side scroller games that we lived off of like that now.
Exactly. And with the last time I had looked really at a way of making that, it would have been something like using Scratch on something that I was working with on the Raspberry Pi at one point when I was looking into Scratch and some programming stuff, and it was more learning how to do the programming. Whereas at this point, it's just, again, we've gone to the upper level where we just describe the output that we want, and this generates it, and that's amazing.
Well, and Scratch is a fun language, easy to like pick up and understand, but like prompting, I mean, it really cannot get any simpler than it's becoming.
Yeah, exactly, and that's again the new the new computer whiz kid is going to be the prompt, the prompts genius is the one who have, they can just be a little chunk of text. And that's the thing is, understanding why the text works is important. Understanding how to generate what you want, how to customize this block of text to make exactly what you're looking for is important. But the fact that you can boil it down to, I can make this little paragraph or two and throw it into this engine and boom, I can get real content very quickly. That's high quality. That's amazing.
Yeah. And tomorrow's like graphic artists and video designers are definitely going to be going this route. I mean, that first one that he showed, the Light Tricks one, I want early access to that.
Yeah.
Like I am gonna, if he's got a little door in there on the early access program, I am gonna follow you, Tim, all the way through that door. That piece of software has a lot of creative potential, and he's concerned about the same things, looking for the same things, the ability to override, edit yourself, and like I want to use these tools to help generating the content, getting it together, but you got to be able to go in and tweak out the more open-ended the AI is there, the more it's what I've always been looking for. Editable content. Like
Sure.
if you're going to create these scenes, I want to be able to change lighting. I want to be able to change the skin on the 3D models and the graphics. Oh, the color of the car.
The color of the car is what I was going to come to.
Perfect example. Like, hey, that green car needs to be red.
Exactly. And instead of a piece of crap like that, make it a Corvette or whatever,
Shit. Nowadays we want a Tesla.
Sure. Make it anything you like. I saw 2 very nice Corvettes in the last couple of days, though. Just driving around random places, and all of a sudden they go by. I was like, what?
No, I had it at one time. It's a great car.
Very, very nice.
All those different softwares that he mentioned there, all enticing. Sora, the one that he mentioned that isn't out yet, that was one I was hunting around for. I wanted to find out more about. There's a lot of talk about it, so like it may be a heavy contender in this video editing scripting world, but nobody seems to have gotten their hands on it. So
But understanding, what information does come out, little bits and pieces and whatever, and just kind of absorbing that stuff and understanding where it's all headed is important also, because then you can get ahead of the curve. When new stuff does come out, you kind of get an idea of where they were heading with it in the first place anyway.
Yeah. The other one I'm definitely going to be I've checked it out, but I'm going to now, seeing what it does with the lip syncing, that Pika platform, like lip syncing and all of that. I've been playing around with that for like the last year and a half. Actually, I was playing around with that over the last decade and a half, but in the old days, you had 3D models, and the lip syncing needed a 3D model in order to, and you fed it audio files. You couldn't feed it text. It was very rudimentary back then, but now it's gotten to the point where you get your character into the scene and feed it an audio file, feed it some text, whatever you want, and
that's where the training of the models comes in, or the models. If you figure, you have it telling it, okay, I want a video of someone saying the words whatever, and then it has video of tons of people saying those words, so it can just immediately look through all of that, and that's why it can come up with a realistic looking. This is what it looks like when people say these words, and then it can extrapolate that onto the model that you're using, and it just does it all so quickly. Is the thing that always amazes me.
And as you can see, it's still in its infancy. There's depending on the starting face, the astronaut did not work out so well.
Yep.
But as it develops, and as you get to know what's a good picture versus a bad picture there, it's ready for prime time.
In my case, in my thoughts, there would be the astronaut. It was like hiding the chin, and maybe the chin was a part of how it anchors the face and understands how the mouth is moving. So it couldn't figure out how to, where's the mouth? It's like, because they've got a helmet in the place where it's expecting to find something else. So it was confused.
Understanding where it can get confused is half the battle to getting around that.
Sure. And if you were able to feed it, instead of just the flat image of the astronaut, if you had a 2-second video of the astronaut just saying whatever, like a word, like hello, like it saw the mouth move. Okay, now it can extrapolate from there, and now it'd be fine.
Yeah. There's a lot of potential with all those suggestions. Thank you, Tim.
Yeah, very cool.
That I feel caught up now.
Yep.
I'm in 2024 finally with AI.
And that's the thing. In 2 weeks, we're going to be behind again, so we're going to have to make sure to stay on top of it.
Well, I will keep checking out Theoretically Media. He keeps up with it. Awesome job.
But what about Udio? We talked about that earlier.
Yeah, I had to at least find out more about it, because when I was looking for the Suno stuff, and this was one that was getting mentioned as this is the Suno killer, and he's also going to talk about a couple of other things, the mysterious GPT update, which I'm curious why
Infinite
so
attention.
mysterious. And infinite attention. Yeah, that's another one that I was like, I need some explanation. So go figure. The channel's name is AI Explained.
Nice. Infinite attention reminds me of the one that was talking about the token size, where they're up to 1 billion tokens in some of these models, and it's basically able to use the entire internet as a token, feed that as the data source, and it's like, wow, that's a lot of attention.
Render me.
Yeah.
So this one comes from at AI Explained -official, so it's official, folks.
And you got Udio right next to Sora right there. Boom, boom.
Oh, and he's covering the biggest news of the century. So hey, we're in the 21st century. We need a newsman.
Indeed.
The arrival of smarter than human AI. So he really is focused on this. And actually looking at the videos, he is looking at the intelligence side of AI. See, I love these curious YouTube channels where they ask the same things I do.
Yep. Curious minds.
And what I'm asking now is about Udio and that mysterious update. Those were the two questions I had.
Let's find out.
We'll give it infinite attention.
Yes, right now.
strange 48 hours in the world of AI, with releases like Udio that have reminded millions of people what AI is capable of, and models that can pay you infinite attention. But we also got befuddling updates from OpenAI that suggests that not all is smooth sailing. I'll start, of course, with the new model on Udio.com and how musicians are reacting. Then cover the perplexing manner of the release of GPT-4 Turbo with Vision, and touch on a fascinating new infinite context paper from Google. But now let's hear 3 20-second extracts from Udio to give you an inkling, if you haven't heard it already, of what it's capable of. Here's June, the Broadway musical.
Paul Atreides of Arakeen, the greatest leader we've ever seen. They say that he's the listen Al-Gaib. Eyes bright blue and hair jet black. You should see him ride on a sandworm's back. Lead us to victory, Yusuf Muad'Dib.
And now for some quite frankly amazing AI-generated classical music. And next, something I'm going to bleep a little bit, but represents the reaction of Uncharted Labs, who are behind Udio, to their servers going down.
We're getting love, we're getting hugs, but the side is down, the side is down. Oh, we appreciate you, and we want your sign-ups, but the side is down, the side is down.
And of course, I have been playing about with Udio like almost everyone has, and did you know it can do stand-up comedy?
And even Brits say hello, yeah. We're talking posh, don't baffle ya, and have a cup of tea, yeah.
It's odd to hear AI talk, right?
Now, I'm not sure if this guy's talking about me, but I thought I'd let you know that this kind of thing is possible. And how about a quick, direct comparison between Udio and Suno V3?
Such together, a missing star from OpenAI. He's gone so far. You're so together. Missing star from OpenAI, he's gone so far, his genius mind.
Now, I prefer Udio there, but you do sometimes get complete gobbledygook.
Det temtast och öjseshatsen käbbelhast. Det tonight sicken to you to cripple's life. You're coming down in worlds her if you got strife.
Now, will.i.am calls Udio the best tech on earth, and Uncharted Labs, which is the company behind Udio, he says, is really aiming to be an ally for creatives and artists. Now, it should of course be noted that will.i.am is an investor in Udio, but again they repeat that Udio is about building AI tools to enable the next generation of music creators. Now, of course, everyone has their own opinion, but let's now get a taste of the reaction from some musicians. One says it's pretty scary thinking what is going to exist a year or two from now, and what it means for musicians, listeners, and the industry as a whole. The top comment says, I would buy a band t-shirt, but never buy a shirt for an AI, which makes sense. But here are two more common reactions. I'm a music professional, producer/composer. This is highly advanced, and I thought this stuff was years away. And one more, I've already gone full circle with it, past the confusion and devastation, and now I'm just curious what Gregorian chant would sound like with, I can't even pronounce that, and blast beats. So definitely a mixed reaction from musicians. Personally, I don't think it's too much of an exaggeration to call this the ChatGPT moment for music generation. Suno often has a slight tinniness that gives it away for those not following AI. But with Udio, I think you could convince many people that they're listening to human music. Just like ChatGPT felt like human tech text if you didn't look too closely. I could well see before the end of this year hundreds of millions of people using this for entertainment. Imagine every schoolchild in the world walking out of their lesson in whichever language with a catchy tune about what they've learned. So yes, I do believe that Udio is the biggest news of this week. But of course, we had the mysterious release of a new GPT-4 Turbo model from OpenAI. And why do I call it mysterious? Well, not because it wasn't named GPT 4.5. They probably thought it wasn't enough of a step forward to give it that name. The strangeness was the repeated emphasis on it being better than previous iterations, but without any detail. They called it majorly improved. Where are the benchmarks though? And now here's some more mystery. All the top players at OpenAI, like Greg Brockman and Mira Murati, tweeted out the news of the new model. But strangely, for the first time, Sam Altman didn't. Now, this isn't about reading any tea leaves, it's just a very strange announcement from OpenAI. I ran my own maths and logic benchmarks and I couldn't see much of a difference. It failed the same questions that the January version of GPT-4 Turbo failed. Of course, the functionality improved with function calling within Vision, but what intrigued me was the repeated claims that GPT-4 reasoning had been further improved. Naturally, on this channel, that's what I was most focused about, the cutting edge of intelligence. Here though is some of the best benchmarking work that I could find. On the noted math benchmark from Dan Hendricks, you could see a bump in its performance on the hardest style of questions, from 35% to around 45%. Even one level down, the performance bumped up from 57% to 66%. The difference on the easier questions wasn't nearly as pronounced. It seems pretty clear that the dataset got augmented with some high-level mathematics and code. Otherwise, it wasn't too much changed. Here's another example, Live Code Bench. You can't complain about contamination because they source their questions from after the training day of the models. And again, as you can see, performance has increased, particularly for harder questions. These are sourced from contests like LeetCode. And that applies not just to code generation, but self-repair. Again though, we're not talking about massive leaps, just small bumps. Here though is the clearest assessment from Epoch AI. The diamond set of the GPQA are the hardest kind of graduate questions. We're talking Google-proof STEM questions that even PhDs find hard. And yes, there was a bump, maybe by 2 or 3%, but GPT-4 Turbo April edition is still lower performing than Claude 3 Opus. Of course, the deeper question is whether or not this indicates some inherent limitations on just simply training on more and more advanced data. It's a bit like the current paradigm can only go so far, even with better data. Of course, you can watch any of my other videos to see why I don't think that will be much of a bottleneck that much longer. Now, it would be remiss of me not to spend a few seconds touching on 2 releases from the open weights community. I'm not going to call it the open source community because they're not releasing their training datasets. I'm talking about the new mixed trial 8 times 22 billion mixture of experts model and Cohere's Command R+. Now, you can judge for yourself, but they land around the level of Claude 3 Sonnet, which is the medium-sized model. Of course, that is a proprietary model. Some people may have expected the open weights community to have caught up to GPT-4 by now, but that's not quite the case. Of course, let's wait to see if Llama 3 can further bridge that gap. Now, before we get to Google, there was one more announcement of a model I want to touch on. This time though, as I've done once before on this channel, I reached out to the company to ask about a sponsorship. I've probably turned down thousands of sponsorship offers, but I'm happy to say that this part of the video is sponsored by Assembly AI. So what happened? They released Universal 1, and basically the reason I reached out to them is because it's really darn good. I'm often transcribing videos and rarely do they get characters like GPT correct, let alone names like Satya Nadella. Universal 1 did. So yes, Universal 1 is the model I personally use, and you can see some comparisons to other models in this chart. It does seem to hallucinate less than Whisper and takes 38 seconds to process an hour of audio. Anyway, Universal 1 only came out like a week ago and I think it's epic, but let me know what you think. The link, of course, will be in the description. But now, from yesterday, a quite fascinating paper from Google. It's about transforming transformer models that could have infinite context. Not 1 million or 10 million, but infinite. I must say, unusually for this channel, I haven't had a chance to finish the paper before talking about it, but I wanted to include it in this video for a reason. Of course, the prospect of feeding in entire libraries is fascinating, but my theory is that this approach might be behind Gemini 1.5's long context ability. If you remember, Gemini 1.5, whose API is now widely available, was able to process up to at least 10 million tokens. Notice the phrase at least there. If you're not familiar with tokens, think 10 million tokens as being around 8 million words. And if that's a daunting number, think 8 entire sets of Harry Potter novels. Now, on the day that Gemini 1.5 came out, I called it the biggest development of that day, despite it being the same day that Sora came out. I would still stick to that to this day. Gemini 1.5 could find metaphorical needles in videos 3 hours long or audio 22 hours long. And the performance just kept improving up to and beyond 10 million tokens. But back to yesterday's paper, why do I think there's any link? Now, one hint is that one of the authors, Manal Faruqi, and sorry if I'm mispronouncing your name, was also an author in the original Gemini papers. And the other hint comes from the paper itself, where they call their approach a plug-and-play long context adaptation capability, with which they can continually pre-train existing LLMs. In other words, it appears like you can take existing LLMs and just pre-train them with this approach to make them great at long context, or indeed infinite context. Is that part of what happened to Gemini 1 Pro to turn it into Gemini 1.5 Pro? Anyway, it is interesting that Google published this while still being a bit cagey about some crucial details. They do conclude, though, that this approach enables LLMs to process infinitely long contexts, even though they've got bounded memory and computation resources. Now, I am going to consult with some colleagues before I say much more about this paper, but just think about some of the possibilities. Imagine a model being able to process every film made by a particular director, or every work of French literature between a particular period, or every email that you've ever sent since birth. But let's not get too far ahead of ourselves, because it's not like Google don't have their own issues. This week we learned that apparently Demis Hassabis said that he thought it would be especially difficult for Google to catch up to its rival OpenAI with generated video. He also apparently mused about leaving Google and raising billions of dollars to start a new research lab. If he did leave to start his own lab, that would swiftly become a very competitive lab. To bring us back to the start, that's actually how Udio was born. We learned from the information that Udio is the work of Uncharted Labs, made up primarily of former Google DeepMind staff. Those researchers had created the model Lyria back in the spring of last year. That could be a very similar model to what we now have in Udio. But the company didn't unveil it until November of last year, and Google still hasn't made it available to the public. It seems like Demis Hassabis isn't the only one with some frustration at Google. But before I end the video, I must give Google great credit for this release within the last 24 hours. With deep learning, of course, they trained these ultra cute football players. And yes, I'm calling it football. These two players weren't manually designed to do the moves they're doing. Through deep reinforcement learning, they learnt to anticipate ball movements and block opponent shots. And these guys were trained in simulation, which I talked about in my recent NVIDIA video. Compared to a pre-scripted baseline, these agents walked 3 times faster, turned 4 times faster, and kicked the ball 30% faster. Soon, therefore, we could have our own mini Erling Haaland. So quite the rollercoaster 48 hours in AI. As always, let me know what you think in the comments. Feel free to hop on board my Patreon, but regardless, thank you so much for watching and have a wonderful day.
Oh, and thank you for
Those
showing
robots
me
are adorable.
robot babies. Robot babies playing soccer. Oh, that just made my night.
And that's pretty much exactly what I was talking about before, where I was saying that it was, different application, but I was talking about training the robots by just having them, experience their own body and figure it out themselves rather than writing line by line, move your elbow like this, move your wrist like that.
Well,
Awesome.
it works for babies. It should work for these robot babies.
Yeah. And they like they did great. They looked like they were playing better than even like what third grade, fourth grade kids.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's about what the game you would be watching.
Yep, adorable.
Now
Very cool.
he got me thinking of several things across the different topics. Uh, the the programmers and engineers moving to other labs. What he was talking about at the end there.
Mhm.
I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of these big platforms that are starting to like crop up and take over and everybody's using are like those early developers that might have started with deepthink, on Google, and then ran off in different directions, like I want to make a music AI, I want to make a video AI, and like this is where you're seeing the next generation of teams and AI.
Because now they had time to go dark and do their research and get everything going on their own aspect. Yeah, and now they're all coming out with different types of things, and also the hardware has been catching up across the board, making everything easier for all of them.
That's been a big key that like we've seen in hints that now that the hardware is here,
Mhm.
a lot of those developers who might have depended on like I need the Google gig in order to be able to research this because they got the money and the toys to wow, we got this new AI chip and we can do it in house.
Mhm.
It's going to start moving really fast in this industry.
One that we didn't get time for tonight was one from Anastasia and Tech. We'll take a look at it another time, but it was basically about chips being developed. About it had a good coverage of kind of going down, shrinking in size across the different ranges of chips, and how they've gotten to where they are now, and how they were able to start getting ahead of the Moore's law curve as far as speed by doing things in different ways. Like rather than just shrinking the transistors down, it's actually finding
Uh,
better ways to do things that are more efficient.
Intel got it down to like an atom
Yeah,
size,
yeah, that's where
but
we are with
like
this. Yeah, yeah.
how much smaller can you go? You really
That's it.
can't.
No, you can't. And just, seeing the picture of what that little setup looked like, where it really is, it's just a couple of atoms in the middle there. And, the actual connection of this little plate in the middle to the other sides is just one atom, just a little string going across pretty much.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah. And that Udio
Mhm.
definitely does look like a good musical toy to play with.
Mhm.
I'm not against music AI and helping to kind of encourage or give you ideas. Like
Mhm.
it may not write my next song, but it might help me.
It might inspire it. Yeah, that's the whole thing. Is to me, in a lot of cases, even just in the keyboards when they have whatever rhythms you have, like that'll inspire a different song than the next rhythm up. So any rhythm that I've just hit something to get me started, get the ball rolling, and you start playing with that, and oh, that chord sounded good. Maybe I'll what sounds good next, and you just kind of work from there and kind of build into something.
And sometimes it's just the part suggestions like, oh, we'll do this for the bass. That's like bouncing off a human. So
Yeah.
like I
Yeah.
have no problem listening to an AI's suggestions on try the
Mhm.
bass like this, try the rhythm guitar like that.
Yeah.
I,
It's
I
basically auditioning different things for you. Yeah.
yeah, I wish that my human bandmates would sometimes be more creative like that.
For me, it's like what I like a lot when I'm working with other people is like somebody we're just gonna play a song and I don't know the song that they're talking about. So I don't want to ask them, well, can they don't know the bass line necessarily, so they can't show me the bass line, but like play me a little piece of the bass groove, like on the guitar, or even just, sing it to me, like if you can give me an idea of what the feel of that bass part is, I'll have a much better chance of playing something that'll fit properly. Whereas if it's just, okay, we're playing this thing in E minor, go, it's like, okay, well, I don't know how busy my part should be, how loud my part should be. Like there's, not knowing the song is it's important to know these things. So that's where auditioning things like that could be really helpful. Audition this part. I like it like that, but next time a little bit slower and a little more guitar or whatever.
At this point with the AI, if it does suggest the part and you like it and you want to learn it, the
Mhm.
AI should be able to pump out the chords or the
Yeah.
notes and say, or give it to me as sheet music, and now
Mhm.
I can play it.
But that's the thing is for me, like lately, the sheet music would be less useful to me. Like I have, piles of sheet music, But if I wanted to learn a song, I would just listen to the song, because to me, like, I learn by ear immediately. Whereas, with something like a sheet music, I would be struggling with it to try to, translate. It's like, translating Sanskrit for me. It would be like, trying to figure out what the song is supposed to be. Where if I hear it, I can just reproduce it because I know what it sounds like now. I know the timing, I know the feel, I know, the structure. Oh, we came around again. That's the verse. Okay, I feel that coming. And then, oh, we're going to this other part. Okay, that's going to be the B part. Understanding how song structure goes together like that is important. Being able to pick it up very quickly, and then, understand that, okay, I just heard like a 1 and then a 4 and then a 2 and then a 5. Like, so, okay, we're in a 4-chord structure. Next time it comes around, I'm already on it. And somebody's like, how did you learn the song so fast? It's like, well, I heard it coming around, and here comes the 1. So here it comes.
You're superhuman.
Yeah, you just jump on board.
I, I like to see a piano roll, or a virtual keyboard is my fastest way to actually, and like you, once I know where I am in the scale or the progression, then it's like, oh, that's what it is. Okay, I don't even need to look anymore.
Yep, exactly. And that's where, again, like, hearing it, that kind of puts it all together for me. And I guess it comes back to when I was learning piano as a kid. I'd have a new piece that I'm working on, so I've seen it on paper, but I've never heard it. So I'm starting to struggle with it and figure out, okay, that's an E, okay, that one's a C, figuring out note by note, like, what I'm looking at, trying to piece it together. But then, my dad could come home and look at it, and he's never seen the piece either, but just looking at it, he can just immediately interpret what it's supposed to be, play it the way it's supposed to be. And I hear it, and I'm like, that's what that's supposed to sound like. So it's like, now then I'm able to reproduce it much more easily, because now I have that target in mind. Whereas I wasn't able to turn it from reading something on the paper into what it should sound like in my head. But having heard it, now it's easier to match that to, okay, this part is the da-da-da. I can see where those quick notes are on the sheet music and anchor that there,
Yeah, it's a lot easier to understand those visuals when I actually can hear it at the same time.
Exactly. And that's why when if somebody's trying to tell me, okay, we're going to play a song in a minute, and if they just say, like, okay, it's in A, and then it goes to G, and then there's going to be a D, and then it's going to be an E, and then, like, they just start reading me a list of letters, by the time you've gotten 3-4 letters in, it's like, that doesn't really help me. But if you just tell me,
give me enough time to get through those letters. Okay, hit the chord, hit the
that's
next
what I want to
chord,
hear.
hit the
That's
next
what I want to hear.
chord.
Yeah. I don't even need the names. Like, I just want to hear what it sounds like, and then I'll find it on the neck and be like, okay, this one, then that one, then this one, then this one. And to me, I'll be thinking about it. Okay, that's a 2-6-1-5 in the key of B, let's say. And, like, once I thought about it like that, that's just a small piece of information that has now told me the whole, structure of that part of the song. So, like, that's the A part, and that's, these 4 chords starting on the B. We could play it in A instead, and now I don't have to retranslate all those letters you told me before. I just know it's still a 2-6-1-5, but now it's in the key of A instead of the key of B. That's why I like to think of it that way. So it translates more easily. And when you're going to the different chords, or knowing where it's going to go, I know it's going to be, these chords that are diatonically here, or it's one of those crazy songs that's going to modulate and go somewhere totally different. But for the most part, songs stick with those chords that are diatonically in the key that you're dealing with. So it's these chords. So it's either going to be this one, that one, this one, that one, this one, or that one. And the 7 chord, who's he?
Asshole.
He's an asshole. So he stays right out. But the 1 chord through the 6 chord, but they're all right there, and it's going to be one of those. And there might be alterations, but it's mostly that.
So for all of you who want to program virtual Glenn, that's how you prompt them.
And you make sure you give it you feed it some footage, some audio at the beginning of the voice, because that'll tell it. That's how you did it for the poetry.
Yeah. Oh, then that also reminds me, on that last video, the second thing he was talking about, that mysterious Chat GPT update, the 4.5, which I guess wasn't ready for 5 prime time. One thing I noticed in that upgrade, they added JSON import of data, and any programmer out there who's dealt with web programming, like XML and JSON, JSON came along to actually make, like, processing data sets in a, like, nice text file way much more efficient. And some of the improvements that they might have been seeing there might have been tied to that feature being added.
Improved speeding up the
sucking up the initial data that, like, you would feed in with JSON. Like, you'd use it to bring in a data model. Like,
I'm pretty sure that live there. I think that would be one of the things that it would not be allowed to make. It probably could, but it shouldn't, because if it did, then you'd both be in trouble.
Well, if you don't know how to do it yourself, I wouldn't trust the machine's interpretation.
But I have seen questions like that before, and it wasn't about that specifically, but I think it was more Breaking Bad. Like what they were doing there. Like somebody was trying to like, oh, well, could it do that? And I guess somebody asked
Well,
it, and one of them could, but whatever.
how about the bigger question? Should it? Should it be
Right.
able to? Because I mean, technically, why are we asking that about like, should we be able to ask ChatGPT how to do that? You can go to Google and ask how to do that, and it's there. So if it's already there for
See, there you go.
the human, then why should you prevent a machine version there from providing that information when a human can get that information themselves?
Yep. See, that's what happens is basically anybody can get any information just like that. Now, it doesn't mean that you can automatically go do that. Not everything is off the shelf materials. And besides, nobody should be doing that anyway. We can't condone the making of stuff like that. But we can say that as a scientific curiosity, yes, you can ask it and it can tell you what is involved with the production.
I'm still waiting for it to teach me how to roll a joint.
Well, that one should be easy, but for that one, I would just say practice, practice, practice. That's how you get to Carnegie.
Yeah. In the end, it is all about practice. Although I have checked out a couple of YouTube videos that helped a little.
See, for me, it was Tom from Tom and Jerry with the doing the cowboy thing and like rolling a cigarette with like one hand, like like dumps the whole pouch of tobacco in the air, and then it like lands right in there, and one hand gets it like rolled right up.
Shit, I have to use two hands and a machine to roll a cigarette. So
and it still makes a noise. Every time I hear that noise, I'm like, oh, smoke break.
It's like my old dot matrix.
Exactly. Reminds you. That's what people are. You see people in Zoom or wherever, and they hear that noise, and they're just like, where did that come from? I haven't heard that before.
Yeah,
nope, it's a smoke break.
Tony's scanning.
Yep. He's heading on out. But I think we have just about run out of time for tonight. But thanks everybody for hanging out. We had some great stuff tonight.
My brain is full. I feel caught up. Like I was like a year and a half off on the current platforms out there. I've heard noise here and there, but it's nice to catch up there.
Yeah, and to see the different directions, like you were saying, different directions that things have gone in when it comes to whether it's text or video or audio, and each has kind of taken its own way, found its own home, and they're all kind of coming back together in terms of you can, utilize similar routines and whatnot to make all of these different things work.
Yeah, and we'll keep an eye on this because it's moving. But if any of you have input on the AI world or good suggestions, send me a DM. I will go down this rabbit hole.
Oh, absolutely. And again, if we can get early access on any of these, we'll definitely do what we can to try to get into some of those beta programs and see what we can find out.
Yeah, this weekend I'm going to be trying to get into that video one. Definitely need it.
And you got some new hardware going on over there that would make good use of some of this stuff, so we can figure out like what kind of models you could generate over there in terms of on local hardware. That's the other thing, is bringing it down from having to have industry level machines down to what you can do on a personal machine. We're getting to that level that models can be trained here.
And that's what I really want. I want to have local control over my rendering.
Yep. Exactly. And we're getting there.
Then 3 to 6 seconds isn't an issue. It's just how long I'm willing to wait for it to render.
Yep. It becomes a question of tedious and overall time rather than that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So it won't be long before we have AI Night Part 3.
That's right. And again, use AI wisely. See, as you can see, you can ask it pretty much anything and it'll tell you pretty much anything. Now, if that information is accurate or not, we can't say, because like they were saying, sometimes the AI hallucinates or tells you something that it's going, hey, this is my best guess at what the next words would be there, but it's not actually telling you, truly, necessarily true information. It could be making all of that stuff up.
Do your own due diligence.
Yes. especially when it comes to making things.
And if you need it explained, check out at AI Explain Official. That's what he does.
And if you're about to make something and you're gonna say to somebody, "Hold my beer and watch this," you might want to like double check and say, "Wait, hold on. Like maybe we shouldn't do that right now because that's crazy."
Glenn, hold my beer.
my head got so big, it's full now. Too much info. That was happening to you.
I was like, oh, it would have been cool if he pulled up a beer.
Sorry, we're going back to our earlier discussions. It's coffee today, and that's a big coffee, though, right?
Here's a magic trick. We're gonna turn a beer into a coffee.
Nice.
Well, that
Delicious.
was a fun one.
And again, we'll be back for more AI because, like you said, it's a big topic. It's going to get even bigger. There's going to be more stuff that we'll have to check back in on, and stuff is happening faster and faster. So there'll be more developments even by the next couple of weeks. So we'll probably be back pretty soon.
Oh, and tomorrow night's going to have some great developments. After BandLab plus coffee with DJ Tatius, we're going to be having a listening party to Spar Legacy's new album, which been waiting.
Very cool. Tomorrow night, right here.
Be there.
In the meantime, thanks for stopping by on Talking Shh IT with Glenn and Tony. Good night, everybody.
Night, everyone.
Ambient noise, yeah.
So now you're grabbing some BandLab clips.
Now for me, that would also be something where I would use like volume automation and like bring that from the bottom, like bring it in and then bring it back out.
And these are the kinds of sounds you can stretch. With this AI, like stretching it actually can be cool.
Oh, that was perfect for the interlude too.
Ends it right in the right
I
spot.
didn't even notice. 40. I didn't even realize the texture faded out at the interlude until it happened. I'm like, wait a minute.
Sometimes you just, it was just meant to be that way.